Hello, everybody. How are you guys doing? It's good to see you all here. Hey, Tech Death. Hey, Dana. Hi, Jeff. Hey, John. Digital, it's always good to have you here. Thank you for coming. Hey, Michelle. Welcome, welcome. Country girl. Oh, Michelle, you're so kind. So, I just wanted to say a couple of housekeeping things for tonight. I want the chat to remain respectful at all times, please. You may or may not be warned depending on how bad it is. So we have a good chat here in this channel. So for those of you that are new or haven't been here, I just want to let you know. Me too, Michelle. I'm really, really worn out. So I didn't sleep well. Hey, 1L. How are you? Hey, Jennifer. Good to have you. Always. You guys always have my back. But we have the captain tonight from True Crime Garage. I hope you all grabbed a glass of wine. We're going to talk about Delphi, and it's going to be a really good show. We also have Skip Jansen with us as well. And these two haven't been together since, I believe, last August, when they did the True Crime Garage podcast together. So this should be really good. That's fine, Tech Death. That's what I wanted to hear from you. For everybody that was asking, that music in the beginning is from Tech Death Hippie. He is an amazing musician. He did the music for my intro as well as my outro. And you guys really need to check him out. If one of my mods would drop his channel for me in the chat, I would appreciate that. And without further ado, I'm going to bring the captain and Skip on with me. Just one moment, please. Make sure you guys give them a warm welcome. Hello, Captain.
Hello.
How are you?
You're in the dark.
I am in the dark.
Hey, we're never going to see Skip's beautiful face.
No, I was going to do it tonight, but
Jennifer, Tech Deaths.
I'm out of town, and I've got the computer. It's got electrical tape over it, the camera, and so instead of taking that off and having to, get mineral spirits or whatever, I figured I'd just,
Excuses.
That's what I said to him as well.
I thought you bought it for a second, though.
That's what I said to him too. Skip, can you set just a little bit closer to your mic?
Me?
Yes, you.
Yeah, I'm squirming around. Sorry.
So welcome. I'm so glad to have you both on. There's been a lot going on since you two were together last.
Yeah, well, we don't like each other.
Exactly. That's not what I hear, but I want to hear more of that. Maybe I'm not hearing the true story.
It was a bromance, but now we're frenemies.
Yeah. Yeah. It all went downhill after the
stuff.
Well, I don't know. I think you guys have a lot to offer. That's just my opinion.
Well, no, I have a lot of respect for Skip, and we've had, I don't know, probably 1,000 conversations, whether through text messages or phone conversations. And one of the things that really drew me to continue, because I've had hundreds of conversations with different people that reached out to me online, but one of the things that kept me coming back to having conversations with Skip is that his openness. To if he maybe doesn't agree with you initially on something, he'll look into it himself. And I think one of the issues in this case is people's unwillingness to change their thoughts. They almost come up with the thought and they stay on that thought for forever. And no matter what evidence is presented to them, they never change their thoughts at all.
No, I so agree. I actually compare it to sports teams. It's like they have their favorite sports team, and nobody's going to change their mind ever about it. And that's exactly how I see it.
Yeah.
In this case, it's weird.
Yeah. They can't see the other side of it at all. You know, there's so much bias there that, and I see it. You know, the funny thing about it is that we receive so little information. The odds that somebody has nailed it exactly are, I mean, astronomically low. So I don't know why people are so, you know, against, you know, being open about that. You know, just, hey, consider everything. You know, because we just have so little information that's come from law enforcement that's considered factual information, that you're trying to put pieces of information that you think are fact, and then you're trying to put this conjecture with that, and so it just makes it. You try to, you know, look, we all try to do the best we can and come up with the most plausible theory we can, if that's what we're trying to do. But it's just difficult with the limited amount of information that we have.
Very true. And we all know that when there's lack of information, or if there's a like, what am I trying to think of?
Avoided information.
I know exactly what I'm thinking of. I just can't think of it. You know, where there's just nothing coming out, we're getting nothing. People will fill in that blankness or that void of information with whatever. And that's what we see a lot of in Delphi. There's a lot of misinformation out there that's spread everywhere. And the rumor mill just keeps chugging it out, as far as I'm concerned. And people latch onto it. And after it's repeated over and over, they start to believe it.
Yeah. You know, I know the murder sheets, there's been a lot of controversy around that. And first of all, I'll say I don't have any issue with them. I've never had an issue with them. I think it may have had more of an issue with me early on, or after the True Crime Garage podcast. But I don't have a problem with either Kevin or Renee. I mean, I understand that some people do, that they think that they put out information that they really shouldn't have, and it's hurt the case. But it's hard to gauge intent, you know, and I think intent in this is important. You know, what's their heart telling them? What are they trying to do here? Are they trying to do the best interest of the case with the girls? They're trying to get justice. If they are, and they're putting this stuff out, I'm going to be a lot more lenient about how I feel, as opposed to somebody who's just doing it for clicks and money.
So, yeah, but how is the information that they put out, how's that hurting the case?
I don't think it necessarily is. I think, as a matter of fact, I think the Ron Logan stuff, I think it may have shown us some things about the possible MO of the killer. You know, the fact that now it's pretty clear that the crime scene was staged. Staging is about deception. Has that been BG's MO all along? Deception. I mean, if he's going to take the steps and take the time to stage a crime scene to make it look one way, to deceive law enforcement, why wouldn't he continue that same thing throughout, you know, the 5 years post crime? Seems logical that he would. And
true.
So I think
Michelle,
things like
thank
that.
you so much for the super sticker. That was very kind. I think that it can hurt the case.
Don't hold back.
I'm sorry, what?
I said, don't hold back. Tell us what you think.
No, I'm just going to say I think that it can hurt the case. So I'm going to disagree.
But how?
And the reason that I feel that is that the way that I see it with this information that to me is irrelevant now. It was relevant in 2017. It's not relevant now about Ron Logan. All this has done is created more speculation that Ron Logan's bridge guy. If you look at social media everywhere, that's what people are talking about. And it's like,
No, I don't know that. I don't know.
Do I raise my hand to talk?
I don't think
go ahead. No, go ahead. Give it to me.
Go ahead, Skip.
Well, I mean, I would just say that I don't think a lot of the people who think clearly and smart people are thinking that Ron Logan is bridge guy. I mean, there may be a lot of people who say that they think it is because of this information. No, I mean, I don't see how anybody could come to that conclusion at all.
Ron Logan was one of the only people that law enforcement kind of, indirectly cleared publicly. I mean, nobody's been 100% cleared by law enforcement, but they kind of implied that. And then on top of that, when they were asked this year, will the killer be watching this interview? And Doug Carter says yes. Well, if you thought it was Ron Logan was dead during that interview. So unless Ron Logan has a really dope TV, I don't know how he's going to be watching the interview when he's dead.
Yeah. I mean, I think, the murder sheet can put out the information, but they can't think for people.
Yeah. And anybody and here's the problem is like the Keegan Kline stuff comes out and everybody goes, oh, it's Keegan Kline. It's Tony Kline. And they didn't even read the information. And then on top of that, when the Ron Logan stuff comes out, again, what that information does is puts us in the mind frame of some law enforcement agents at that time. Not everybody, but some. And then it gives us kind of an idea when they're saying that the murder took place somewhere else. I'm guessing that's probably within the creek bed. And then they were moved. I don't think they were moved miles upon miles. I think they were moved probably, 15 to 20 feet. And they were probably moved from the waterways, if you want to view that as a trail itself. I mean, what I've heard from local people in Delphi is there's a lot of people that would travel along the waterways as a trail. But even when they come out with comments that state, and I think maybe what you're alluding to, Kristen, is this idea that this report, whoever wrote it, is making the claim that the girls didn't put up a fight. And then people think that is disrespectful somehow to the family. And my argument is you have to decide for yourself what matters. And what matters to me more than anything is the actual truth. So if the evidence points that they didn't put up a fight, that is evidence to how this could have went down or what possibly went down. And just because you didn't put up a fight doesn't mean you're any less of a victim or you're any less of a hero for getting audio footage and video footage of the killer. And I think a lot of people assume that by Murder Sheet putting this out, that this somehow is negative towards the victims. And I don't think it is. The truth is the truth.
Yeah, that's the thing. None of us know the exactly what happened with the bridge abduction. We know that there's been several scenarios put forth, and we know law enforcement said they're all wrong. So there's something about it that we're missing. There's, if you try to answer all of the questions, because there's so many questions. How does he corral two young girls and keep them together? And how does he get them to the other side of the creek? And there's just so many things, so many questions, and nobody's gotten it right yet. So I agree with the captain is that I think we can infer some things by some of the information that's being put out. That if they didn't fight, that doesn't mean necessarily that, oh, they were just so scared and they were just frozen. That could mean several things. That could have meant one or both didn't think they were in imminent, you know what I'm saying?
Danger, yeah.
Danger, yeah. And so there could have been a lot of ways this could have gone down, and none of those reflect negatively on the girls. I chalk that up kind of to people want to be offended. You know, a lot of people just are looking for something to be offended about, and I don't see anything there that is offensive at all about saying that they didn't put up a fight.
Kristen, you want to protect the family, but the truth is the truth.
Well, other than a family member said that Libby put up a hell of a fight. Well, obviously that's a great way. I mean, it's hard to talk about these things because you're talking about the remembrance of somebody, and you're talking about a family member and a child, and so it's difficult.
I'm sorry, I'm walking all around because my power and it says plug in your laptop or it's going to die. So I'm trying to.
You would think a man of your means would have something better than that.
I know, pathetic.
Is that what Nick gives you?
Yeah, no. Nick makes me record everything on an iPod. Remember those?
Yeah.
Come on, Kristen, talk. You got to talk. This is your show.
I'm listening.
I know you want to scream at me and skip right away.
I'm not going to scream at you. I would never do that, but I'm going to speak to you from a different place. This stuff that the murder sheet released really upset the family. Kelsey's upset. Becky is really upset. And I think you have to, it's hard for us because we are looking at this from an investigatory aspect. We want to know what happened, try to figure out who did this and why. And these are their children and sisters who were brutally murdered. And now we find out that it was an extremely bloody crime scene. We found out things that they didn't know. And I think at the very least, Murder Sheet should have reached out and contacted them and let them know that they were going to drop this.
Kristen, you're implying that they didn't reach out to the family.
They didn't say they did.
Do you know if they did? Because I think they did.
How did this turn into Skip and the captain defending Murder Sheet?
Well, no. I mean, here's my issue with it. It's like what I've learned in the last 7 or 8 years is some families don't care about the truth. I'm not saying that they don't. I'm just saying that is what I've learned in the last 7 years. We've covered cases where once we looked into the case, it is nothing like the family has reported.
Yeah.
And so why was that? And so this idea that Murder Sheet didn't, I don't know if they did or not, but let's just say hypothetically they did and nobody replied. Then is it their obligation to not put out this information because nobody replied? Because I've gotten shit on because I put out stuff about this case, and then people have told me, you have an obligation to share it with the family. And then I say, well, I tried to share it with the family. I'm sorry, I'll sit down in a second.
Where are you walking to, first of all?
I had to get an extension cord just so I could plug
in. Are you going to the next door neighbor's house?
Yeah.
I asked to borrow some flour and some sugar.
I usually have to pinch you to see if you're still breathing. Tonight you're all riled up.
No. And look, okay, I need to sit down so I can be very frank.
You kind of do look like a Frank.
Well, I don't want to upset Kristen because we're on her show.
You're not upsetting me.
Kristen is very protective of the family, and I understand. I get it.
I'm going to try and protect the family.
Yeah,
at all costs.
But it's not okay. First of all, it's not your job to. And the truth. Okay, I'm plugged in now. I am ready to go.
Oh wow, your eyes just lit up. That was amazing.
Yes.
24 minutes into the show, you're ready now.
I had to get warmed up, Skip. Okay. First thing, the family owes us nothing. They are victims. Their family member was murdered. They owe us nothing. I have sent messages to Kelsey. She has not replied multiple times. I don't go around and go, what a bitch. She didn't reply to me. She must be hiding something. No, I'm smart enough to understand that she doesn't owe me anything. But when this Ron Logan information is a snapshot into where law enforcement's brains were at that time and details of the crime. If they shared that with the family and the family didn't reply, I just think so we're going to throw Murder Sheet under the bus because they found stuff and they if they tried every means to put it out in the best way possible and they contacted the family and they contacted law enforcement and the family didn't reply, well, I'm sorry, but it's hard to bitch about it afterwards. Because if they reached out to you and you said, we told them not to release it and they released it anyways, then say whatever you want. But if you didn't even reply to them, then, the truth is the truth. And the truth is going to come out one day and the family's either going to be able to handle that or not. But that is not for the truth to care if the family can handle it or not.
No, and I understand all of that, but as a mother who's buried a child, I can tell you that it is extremely difficult to live that in the public eye as I did. My situation was different. My 4-year-old son had cancer, but we lived it in the public eye. He was in the newspapers all the time. Everyone wanted to talk to him. I had strangers contacting me, telling me to give him this medicine, this drug, this whatever, meaning well, but they don't understand sometimes how hurtful things can be. You're living a hell and you don't necessarily want to share it with everyone. They're living a hell
but
every
also,
single
hold on
day.
a second, because when the family or law enforcement ask for the public's help and you put yourself on public platforms, that is going to cause an issue. Most of these people on these social media platforms are not the brightest bulbs. And, we put out a podcast every week, and I am hit with very negative comments. If I can't deal with the negative comments, it's my choice to put out a podcast. And I understand that it wasn't their choice for their loved one to be murdered, but it is your choice to be involved, and it is your choice to be involved publicly. And there's going to be negativity that comes with that. And let's just be adults and understand that there will be negativity that comes with that. And they have a right to say whatever they want. And so when they didn't like this information, they said it online. And there's nothing wrong with that. And if they want to tell people to not listen to the Murder Sheet when they come out with information, that's on them to do.
I think that's the issue, though, isn't it? I mean, Kristen, you having an issue with who released the information or the information that was released? I mean, if law enforcement had released that, would it have been different? I mean, I guess I'm wondering,
if law enforcement had released it, law enforcement would have wanted it released. I'm still not 100% sure that law enforcement wants this released. I don't think they do. In my opinion, I definitely think that there is somebody in Delphi that is working against getting this case solved. I think they're putting out information to keep us looking at other things
But hold
instead
on,
of what
hold
we
on, hold
should
on.
be looking at.
Yeah, but here's the problem. If you're looking at Ron Logan as a suspect because of some statement that was made in 2017, you're a moron. So let's just not talk about the morons, because especially in cases like this, any case that starts being taken over by the internet, it is just riddled with morons.
Oh, I know.
And and it's just
Yeah,
the truth.
when you start worried about what you say to appease the morons, that's when you probably need to.
Well, and there becomes this hierarchy that I have to be the one that Murder Sheet put out this information, and because it didn't come from me, then I'm going to somehow like knock them down or say that the information isn't valid. I know for a fact that I learned something from that information. Now, do I have the right to learn something from that information? I don't know. I think that's a bigger, higher question. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah, I think that's kind of the point. Is it's not necessarily the information that's released; it's more the who released it, that and the reason behind why they would have released it. I'm like you. I gained information from it. I thought it was interesting. I thought it showed some insight into maybe the killer's mind, and how was staging the crime scene, and the deception and all that. So for me, it doesn't really matter how it comes to me. It's more, just I just want to know, gain as much information as I can. It didn't really matter to me that it came from Murder Sheet.
And I agree, I do too, but I'm just playing devil's advocate with it. Hey, I had the Murder Sheet on my show after their first drop. I interviewed them. I interviewed Anya and Kevin. I talked to them off the show, behind this time or screen, whatever. They're nice people. I don't have anything against them personally. I think professionally.
Well, but then why do you hate them so much?
I'm not hating on them. I can give you a couple of reasons if you'd like. I hate the way they came after you and Skip, for one.
Yeah, but look,
that bothered me a lot, and especially when they redropped that information from August again, and it was almost immediately after I'd had Skip on the show. So it was like, to me, that was purposeful, and I just saw that as, I don't know. I just felt bad about it. I just think differently of them now. I'm sorry. I don't hate on them. I'm not hating on them.
I think at the end of the day, there's two murdered girls, and sometimes we don't know what to do with the information that we're learning. And all I can say is that there's been several times that I've reached out to Kelsey about an issue or about something that I put out, and she hasn't replied. So, but she doesn't owe me a damn thing, And if I was in her shoes, I wouldn't be as nice as she's been.
See, I've spoken to Kelsey and I've spoken to Becky.
Well, so have I, but I'm just saying.
And I'm just saying that I try to see it from both aspects. And because there are so many people, and I don't know how much of this you see with your podcast. I don't know how much you live in this world where we're at right now on YouTube or Reddit or wherever. But there is a lot of people that are putting out content that all they do is trash the family. That's all they do.
Well, first of all, there's a freedom of speech, and people have the freedom to be idiots. And that's
some
what
people are really good at it too.
I mean, one of the problems with the Delphi is every time I go onto YouTube, there's and we're a part of the problem right now. We're doing a live stream. Every time I go on YouTube, it says there's a live stream happening right now for Delphi. And
my good friend Fig is here, and Captain, you know who Fig is, and of course Skip does. Yeah, he says he has a question for both the Captain and Skip. What would you describe as the perfect date with Fig?
Him paying me back the $20 he owes me. No, that's not true. Me and him would probably watch Silence of the Lambs together and share popcorn.
It's sheer popcorn. I love it.
Yeah. You have to watch Fig. Fig's sly. He's sweet flip Fig. He hangs back, doesn't say a whole lot, agrees with everybody. Then all of a sudden, bam! Just when you feel a little weak, here he comes.
Yeah, I wish he would stop these lies about the CGI videos. But
I know. I especially love when he starts talking about, I don't really know that much about the case, and then he'll hit me with something I haven't heard of, and it's like, oh, I finally got you, and I'm like, you do that every day, So
no, but I want to go back to this because I do think it's important. If I reach out to Kelsey and she doesn't reply, that doesn't mean she's a bad person. She doesn't have to reply to me. She owes me and the community that is following this case nothing. And so, but when law enforcement asks for the community's help, there's going to be a lot of positive and there's going to be a lot of negative.
yeah,
And when you see a case like this blow up, especially like take the Mara Murray case, for example, that was huge on the internet. There's
Right.
tons of YouTube channels. There's tons of podcasts just about that case. You're going to have people that talk badly about the family. And I'm friends with that family. And I can tell you there's things that the family has done in the Mara Murray case that I wouldn't have done myself. That doesn't mean they're bad people. That just means that's how they're handling this case. And I've talked to Becky multiple times at CrimeCon. I've talked to Kelsey multiple times at CrimeCon. A lot of people forget before there was any YouTube videos, we were the first people to talk about this, on some other form of media to
Right.
say there was this crime that took place when we have no clue what we're talking about. We say it over and over. We have no clue what we're talking about. We're just trying to get this information out there. And then the family goes, thank you very much. Okay. Thank you very much. But then when we put out other information that is factual information, we've been told that we were wrong by the family. So,
the subject matter is so emotional.
It is.
And just full disclosure, I'm in Indiana right now. I was out there today, and the emotion that you feel on those at the trails and at the bridge is palpable. I mean, it's real. It's heavy. It's so people are invested in this emotionally, and rightly so. And that's a lot of times where their the arguments come from, and and they're basing their reasoning on emotion, and look, it's like I said, the subject matter is totally emotional. It's sad, it's heavy, it's all of that, and but these discussions are good. I think that as long as we're keeping the case out there in the public eye, that's really an important thing.
but also, Kristen, don't feel like you have to defend somebody. Becky and Kelsey, they are not weak individuals.
Oh no, I know.
They are very strong individuals, and they have heads on their shoulders, and they don't need to be protected. You know, and again, I think it becomes a very difficult thing because I think Murder Sheet, when they first reached out to me, it was like, oh, we got you. We're going to throw you under the bus and expose you to the world. And then they realized that I actually gave a shit, that this actually bothers me. And I think even after the interview I did with them, I think they were like, well, he's not a bad guy, And I think in a lot of ways they're in the same boat. They have this information. They think it's important to put out. They think maybe it will move the needle in the case a little bit.
Yeah, that's why I would probably. I'm just going to give them the benefit of the doubt on their intent. You know, if their intent is to help the case, to put out information, they think it's the public needs that kind of information, then I'm fine with that. If they're doing it for another reason and not a positive reason, then everybody can have a problem with it. But like I said, I think we should give them the benefit of the doubt on what their intent is, because it's just almost impossible to determine someone's intent.
Well, and people get.
And I would agree with all that you said. I think that
But
this case, I think this case is extremely traumatic and triggering for a lot of people, for a lot of different reasons. But you know, I've been following since day one. I want it solved more than I can tell you. I know, no, I'm not the only one. There's a lot of us out there. You two, for all three of us right here, want it solved more than anything. So, yeah, digital has a good question because this bothers me too.
Patch,
Why the watermark?
Answer. Yeah,
If you're putting out information and you're putting out legal documents, why stick your watermark all over them?
I think.
Well, again, I think we need to start by one of my problems with this world in general, and I won't go on a big soapbox, but our society is, I mean, we're becoming dumber and dumber by the day. We don't care about substance or anything anymore. We have moms doing dances on TikToks. I really don't get this world, but so the first thing is they probably put the watermark on there because they want people to know where it comes from and they want people to listen to their show. That's reality. And if you told me that you didn't care about anybody watching your show, you're an effing liar, because that's not how this works. I don't think about our downloads. It's not something I constantly think of, or I don't go, we're going to cover this case because this is going to make our show blow up or something. But I'd be a liar if I said I didn't check download numbers, every now and then. You know what I mean? That's part of the reason why we're doing this. And anybody that says that they aren't doing this for numbers, they're a liar. Period.
No, I agree with that. It's like I tell my subscribers, I'm here because I didn't think anybody would care what I had to say. I'm surprised people listen to me at all. So
that's because you're awesome.
You're too kind.
Well, Kristen, if you'd stop being awesome, then and I'm not saying you're a bad person for checking your numbers. It's just part of what it is.
Yeah, agreed.
And the more people listening, the more you feel like you have a voice, and that's important. So part of the reason why they're doing the watermark is to tell people, hey, we put out this information. But I actually was able to talk to them last week, and they actually pointed something out that I thought was brilliant. They are contacting law enforcement. Law enforcement is telling them what to pull out. They are pulling those items out of what they're releasing. By putting that watermark on it, if you then go on the internet and find an unredacted version that doesn't have their watermark, and you start saying that you got that from murder sheet, it's not true, right?
Right.
So basically what and look, is law enforcement straight up lying to the family? I bet money they are. I bet money that they're telling Murder Sheet, we don't care if this information is out, because they don't want Murder Sheet to feel like they have an upper hand on law enforcement. And then they're going and telling the family, we begged Murder Sheet not to put this out. I guarantee you that's what they told the family. But I think they're putting it out there to say, this is the information we put out, and anything that's not put out with our watermark, we're not responsible for. And at least I can applaud them for taking responsibility for the information that they're putting out. If I put something out on Twitter, I put it out. And if you tell me I'm wrong, that's okay. but I can't then hide behind that somebody else put it out. Does that make any sense?
No, it does. It totally does.
It
You're
does,
such a
definitely.
smart guy. It's why I wanted you on the show.
Hey, can I respond to somebody?
And
Hey,
I'm
Dave.
serious. People need
Yeah.
to hear more from you.
Yeah.
Let's make sure that we're getting all the questions.
Yeah, can I respond to somebody? Thanks
Yeah,
for
go
saying
ahead,
that, Dave.
Skip.
Yeah, thanks for saying that, Dave. I appreciate it.
What did
I
Dave say? You look better today than you've ever looked before?
Of course he
Hey,
did,
Grizz.
yeah.
It's so good to see you. Thank
And
you
Max-
for showing up.
Max said that I look like, or I sound like somebody who would take you fishing on the first day. I mean, he said like that's a bad thing or something.
Nick, I think you've been drinking too much wine. He listens to me because my voice makes him feel like I'm being hugged by a big teddy bear.
Well, Nick, we are going to hug you. It's going to be a 3-way hug. Yeah. We're going to touch you in places that you wish you never knew you existed.
But no, I agree with you. I don't think law enforcement is as honest as everybody thinks they are, and that they do hold things back and they do tell things that aren't true. That's just how it works.
Yeah, and again, it's like, but anybody that doesn't understand what these guys, as much as Kristen, you can be upset and lose sleep over it. And I've told Skip this, I have a reoccurring dream that I'm on the bridge. I mean, I've probably had it, I don't know, maybe 200 times. I'm on the bridge and I'm running I'm behind bridge guy, and I grab his shoulders and turn him around. And sometimes there's no face there. Sometimes there is a face there. Sometimes it's like a demonic face. And then I always wake up. And I want this case solved so bad. But I did not see what law enforcement saw. And if I saw this is why I'm not in law enforcement. If I saw what they saw, I probably could never sleep until the son of a bitch was arrested. And I might kill a couple innocent people in the process of trying to get justice for these girls. And that's why I'm not in law enforcement. I couldn't handle this. And
I
so
agree.
if these people are lying because they think it helps solve the case or going to help solve the case, then they need to do whatever they can to
I agree. We have to listen to what law enforcement says. It's the only thing that we have. I just believe that. I mean, Skip knows this about me. I'm all about facts. I mean, I really am. We need to look at the facts. That doesn't mean that we can't speculate and look at other things or other ideas, because I think that having different ideas is a good thing. I like to hear the other side of things in a respectful manner. So,
well, that was why I was not opposed to the information, the Ron Logan stuff, just because it gave us some factual information.
The law
enforcement have so little of, it.
Well, law enforcement keeps on. They've asked multiple times for the community's help. Anytime that there's a big piece of information that shakes up the case a little bit, I think that gets them closer, or maybe gets somebody closer to coming forward. And heck, for all we know, in a month from now, they arrest somebody and they say, I heard this information on murder sheet, and so I called something in that maybe I wouldn't have. We're not going to know this stuff until it's all done. But
right.
But it sucks.
It's not their responsibility to comprehend things for people. If they put it out there, and if your takeaway is that Ron Logan is bridge guy, that's not on them. That's on you.
Exactly.
So I mean, that's so. From that standpoint, I don't have a problem with that. Everybody's constantly complaining about the lack of information we get, and then we get a little bit, and we get to a sneak peek inside of the investigation, and that's a problem too. So Like I said, I'm gonna give him the benefit of the doubt on that, just because it was information I thought that was help the public with it, and it also, I don't know that they did that for nefarious reasons. So I'm
It
okay.
would be interesting to know what their reasoning was behind putting it out.
Well, I know that because I talked to him. That it puts us in the mind frame of where law enforcement was at the time, and it gives us a more insight into the case. Because there's a bunch of what ifs. There's not a bunch of what ifs. There's a bunch of unknowns.
Yes.
We don't know how they were staged. We don't. I stated over and over that I didn't think Bridge Guy went back across the bridge because I believe he would have had blood on him. And I have no evidence that it was a bloody crime scene until this search warrant comes out. We don't even know if that search warrant, some people are very careful with their verbiage. That doesn't mean that this person doing the search warrant was that careful with their verbiage. I mean, saying staged means something different than posed or placed.
Or signature, yeah.
But we don't know how careful this individual was with their wording. So you got to take everything with a grain of salt to go, well, they said staged, but that doesn't mean that they were posed in some weird way. But I've heard that the family visited the crime scene before and was like moving around leaves, and there was still evidence of blood there. I don't know how truthful that is, and it doesn't make sense to me that law enforcement went and just scoop up every single leaf in that area. Hell, I mean, rip up the damn grass if you have to, and leave the whole crime scene just bare. But I used to think that law enforcement maybe told the family more than they're telling us. I doubt that now because I think they would have known this information. But whatever happened to those girls, I'm sorry about, and I wish I could fix. But there's no way of protecting the family because that information is going to come out at some point.
Oh yeah, for sure, and it's going to be really difficult at trial.
I do think
if we get to that point, because it will be hard for all of us to hear. I think.
Yeah,
what went down that day.
Tried to protect them, though. I really do. That's a difficult balance to try to.
I have a lot of respect for Kelsey, and at CrimeCon, she told me some of my information was wrong, and I asked her what information was wrong, and she didn't answer the question. And later on, I sent her a direct message on Twitter and said, "Could you just? I know you're busy, but what information do I have wrong?" And there was no reply. So, I had a series of things that I wanted to post that I thought people should talk about. Some references to the timeline, references to eyewitness statements, references to the coat. And once I started putting stuff out and then I start getting negativity back, then I just feel like, well, do I really want to bark up a tree that I'm not wanted? But it's the family in these cases are not the gatekeepers of information. They can never be. We have people in this family that lied to law enforcement early on. They lied to law enforcement. When somebody lies, they're considered a liar, right? That goes to character. So I don't know these people personally, but there's certain things that they've done that I think are mistakes. You have a father of one of these victims that has a drug history. And you know what's around people using drugs and selling drugs? Bad. Am I allowed to curse on this show?
You can curse.
You were hesitant when you said that.
I'm good with it.
Okay, I'll try
I
not to.
curse. I just try not to curse on my show, but you can curse.
I'll try not to curse.
Yeah, boy, do you curse.
There is a father that is involved in this case that is not involved. I think it's strategic why he hasn't given statements. I think it's strategic on why they don't talk about him in public. Whether that would mess up the case or not. But you have to understand that in a lot of cases, God, I feel like I'm getting all worked up. In a lot of these cases, the person that is responsible or the person that is involved in the case is connected to the family.
Mm-hmm.
And it would not surprise me if this person is somehow connected to the family. If Bridge Guy is not somehow connected to the family. And so when people hear stuff like, well, they didn't put up a fight. Well, why not? Did they know the person? Because if they knew the person, then they wouldn't have thought that the attack was coming. And so the family members of any crime case are not the gatekeepers of information. They're not the authority figure on the information. And on top of that,
yeah, they don't get unfortunately, they don't get to pick who the killer is. I mean, that's,
exactly. The truth is what's most important. And if I was having a conversation with Becky or Mike or Kelsey, I'd say none of this matters. The only thing that matters is the truth. And I guarantee you that's what they want more than anything. They can't bring back their loved one. It does not matter if their loved one put up a fight. All that matters is that we get this son of a bitch. That's all that matters.
Yeah, they look. They're hurt. They're hurting bad. They don't want anything to come more to hurt them worse. I get that. They're protecting themselves. I totally get that.
But also, the younger the victim, the more likelihood that it was a family member.
Yeah, that's statistics. Yeah,
that's the statistics. We can't ignore them. Statistically, it is somebody. Statistically, we're all murdered by someone we know. That's where it is. I'm just saying.
I hope we're not all murdered.
Well, I know, but
I would like to go out with natural causes.
Okay, I want to.
No, you're not going to do that.
Can you make that happen?
And look, Kristen, I can tell that everything I'm saying is making you extremely uncomfortable.
No, it's not.
But here's
a really big proponent of the family, and I totally respect that.
But here's my problem: is I worked on a missing person case. I've been working on it for 7 years, and I was telling somebody the other day, it shouldn't be called true crime. It should be called what we think we know so far, because the story that this missing person's dad told was a bold bullshit lie. And you went out to the public and told bullshit lies and expected us to figure out what happened to him? How does that make any sense whatsoever?
It doesn't. But
no, it doesn't.
Most of us act in a way that we can handle.
Right. And again, you have to decide, because the truth, and I don't know if it's because my dad was a detective, but it's like I could curse at my dad. I could call my dad whatever name in the book. But if I lied to him, it was like I was scum, because he dealt with people that lied to him all the time. And for whatever reason, in this case, there are several people that lied.
Yeah.
And then the question becomes, why?
Yep.
Why did you lie? I mean,
Exactly.
I can't get over the fact that Derek, that knows the trail, was told which direction to go in. And when he had the choice to go left or right, he went right. And just by definition, if you follow his path, it puts him 15 minutes in the wrong direction. So to get back to the right direction is another 15 minutes. That's a 30-minute gap.
Yeah, the only side, the other side of that is that he was told there was a couple under the bridge, and so that trail goes to basically under the bridge. Was he going down there to ask if they had seen anything? You know, I mean, again, that's just, you know, I'm trying to give him the benefit of the doubt as well.
I can't imagine what Derek must feel like knowing that he was out there on that trail with bridge guys still there.
Yeah, or what does he feel like if he looks at the picture of bridge guy and he knows who it is?
Terrible. Again, they're protected. That's why I think they're protecting themselves. They look. Some of the family members have said they hope this isn't somebody they know.
Oh man, Anna said it in February when she was interviewed.
So that's the thing. I don't blame them, but they don't get to make that choice. That's what. Yeah,
the truth is the truth.
The truth is the truth.
And the thing is if this comes back and it's somehow connected to Derek, then everybody's going to go, for 5 years, the family could have said something and they didn't. We all think we know best, but I think at the end of the day, people have to, deep in their heart, the only thing that matters to me in this case is the truth.
Well,
I could give a flying F about anybody's feelings.
We may not all think we know the truth or what's right, but I think we all know what we can handle emotionally, physically, and we make a lot of our decisions based on that. And I think you're seeing a lot of that with the families. Is they know what their breaking point is. They know what they can take and what they can't, whether the truth's involved in it or not. They know what they can handle and what they can't. And I think, I believe you've seen a lot of that.
Yeah, both Becky and Kelsey said to me at CrimeCon, they said something, I'm paraphrasing, but something to the effect of that this social media aspect seems like a good path, like a promising path, if that makes any sense.
So there's a question here from Chihuahua Dawson. She's wanting to know from the captain, who is your POI? You do not have to answer that.
No, I don't have one definitive.
That you're willing to fight people over?
What was that?
That you don't have one that you're willing to fight people over?
Yeah, I'm not gonna shank you over this, but look,
go over to Reddit. See what happens.
And that's the other thing too, is when people talk about these spaces, the message boards being negative or the Reddit boards being negative, you're not going to solve this case on Reddit. So get a life. You're not going to. I've talked to more people that tell me the most bullshit stories, and then you find out that, I got a person of interest. They're 100% person of interest. Well, what's their alibi? Well, that they were at this place. Well, did you ever call the place? No. So you spent 3 months looking up. You spent 3 months looking up Facebook pictures, and you saw a picture of the guy with his hands in his jeans. Oh, this guy puts his hands in his jeans too. He must be bridge guy. This guy has a jacket that kind of looks like bridge guy's jacket, and he has his hands in his pocket. Or this guy put up this weird post that has nothing to do with the crime. And call call these people.
That's why I wanted to mention something about, Jeff's Burke's videos about I think are great, and I'll tell you why. Because law enforcement has asked us to pay attention to his mannerisms, the walk, the gait. Pay attention. They've released his voice. Pay attention to his voice. They've released a sketch. We think this is what the guy looks like, right? In his videos, he's addressed all of those things. And he's done it in a manner where he's shown his POI as somebody he thinks walks like the guy on the bridge, talks like the guy on the bridge, looks like the guy on the bridge. And so, but yet he gets a lot of grief for that. But that's what law enforcement's asked us to do.
Well, and then the other question becomes is, and I talk to people about this all the time. In 2019, at their press conference, is law enforcement talking about a real person, or are they talking about a fictitious person? And if somebody believes that they're talking about a fictitious person, that makes sense to me. Or if they think it's a real person, we don't know, because in many crimes, I mean, you take John Douglas. John Douglas did press conferences where they're completely talking to a profile of an individual. My gut feeling is that they're talking to a real person on the 19th.
I agree.
So if that is true, we're 3 years removed. 3 years removed.
No, I totally agree that law enforcement knows or believes they know who Bridge Guy is. I believe that in my heart of hearts, that they know who this guy is, and they're trying to build a case. And whether or not they're going to have enough to go to court with him we're going to wait and see.
Yeah, that's always the slap. That's always the cold water in the face. A case that has seemingly very little physical evidence.
Well,
maybe not.
They have to be able to prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. It only takes one juror to say, and that's not too hard in this case with all the POIs that have been flown around. And I mean that a good defense attorney can get up there and rip apart a circumstantial evidence case.
Well, but I think that's what people have to understand is, like, you look at the Keegan Kline interrogation, you can look at it two ways. They think he's responsible for the murder, or they have to definitively prove where he was at the time of the murders, because the defense team would rip that apart. You found my client through a search. You know what I mean? Through a search.
Thanks, Jennifer, for your super sticker.
Yeah, I didn't get a super sticker.
You're not going to get one, I can promise you, pal.
You guys are funny.
But I go back to it's also tough with this case because I get so just angry. This case makes me, out of all the cases we covered, I mean, we have 581 episodes. And that's not counting our off the record episodes. I mean, we're probably at like 700 episodes. And out of all the cases, it's like this case, it haunts me. It pisses me off.
Me too. One of the things about this case, and I still believe it. I think that there's a lot more to this case than people think. I don't think it's just some bridge guy that walked out there and killed these girls. I think it's much deeper than that. I think there's a lot more involved, and I will not be at all surprised if somebody big within Carroll County has a hand in it somehow.
Yeah, somebody's asking if they think that law enforcement, if I think that law enforcement's the one that's releasing this information. Yeah, that one. It's possible. There could be somebody in the case that, and I've heard this from a lot, my dad used to tell me, sometimes there'd be 3 detectives on a murder case. And one guy would be so set, this is the guy, let's go arrest him. And my dad would always have to explain to that guy, okay, work backwards now. try to prove yourself wrong. And I tell this to Skip all the time when he gives me information. Okay, that's good. Now, the flip side of the pendulum is try to prove yourself wrong. And when you can't prove yourself wrong, then you know you're headed in the right direction. I still don't understand why we have an eyewitness that lied about his whereabouts, has lied over and over about the events of that day, has a time gap of an hour and a half from roughly 2 o'clock to 3:30 during the time that the murders were taking place. And one of his lies online was he put himself under the bridge. Well, why do you not want to be under the bridge? Because that's where the murder took place.
Thank you, Vanessa Marie. Thank
You know,
you so much.
the murder took place in the waters, what I believe, on those sandbars, and then he moved the bodies. That's what I believe. I think some of the evidence shows that too. I mean, when they're talking about these claw markings on the edge of the water, was these girls trying to climb away? But this individual has then changed their appearance multiple times, changed their appearance in 2017. And then when a press conference comes out and they go, hey, here's a picture of the guy, he changes his appearance again. And then I got shit on because we said this guy should be looked into. This guy also has hid his social media. He was a social media butterfly for years. And now, all his accounts are private and you can't see anything, and he won't talk to anybody.
Yeah, that's it's definitely is unusual. I mean, why would anybody lie in a murder case like this if you don't have? I mean, doesn't make
a huge red flag.
I mean,
huge red flag.
I hear the story of he was with another girl and he was cheating. Look, cheating is one thing. Two little girls laying on a creek bank dead, and you feel compelled to lie about what you were doing. I don't know.
I've always had problems with someone who out of the blue would place themselves within a murder scene for any reason. Well, why would they do that?
I go back to, if you look at.
To me, that's weird.
Well, I think you could look at that as being deceptive. I mean, we know the crime scene now. We know the crime scene was based on that, based to look like something it wasn't. That's deception. We see all this misinformation in the case. That's deception. Injecting yourself into the case falsely. That's deception.
And sleuth intuition.
The guy who's going to be the guy who's going to be BG is going to be somebody who, in my opinion, is going to be somebody who has followed the case, has been part of the misinformation, has led people astray, law enforcement included. I think that all of that deception is his MO. I think that's been what he has been about ever since the crime. Staging the crime scene. I mean, why would it be hard to believe that if somebody staged the crime scene because they were trying to deceive, they wouldn't keep trying to deceive to keep themselves out of jail?
Well, and sleuth intuition brings up a good point that we know that Ron Logan lied. So, but then you just have to follow, why did he lie? He lied because he wasn't supposed to be.
The problem with that lie, sorry, I didn't mean to speak over you. The problem with that lie that I had was he asked for an alibi for the afternoon, but not for the morning when he drove to the dump. He only wanted him to alibi when the timeline was when the girls were murdered. And he asked for that alibi before they ever came out and said the girls were murdered. They were just missing. That's a problem.
Yeah, it is a problem until you get to 2019 and law enforcement releases a picture of a young guy.
Right.
If they thought it was Ron Logan, they would never release that picture.
I
I
agree with
believe
you, Sleuth.
I agree with Sleuth too.
I agree with you, Sleuth. I certainly do.
I think there's some hands in this.
There's somebody in the high places that does not want this case solved. And
Yeah.
I don't know why, but I believe that.
Yeah.
well, maybe because one of the suspects' father was a volunteer for 18 years.
Why do you have to move the investigative headquarters 3 or 4 times? I mean,
Well, that's because I think information was being leaked locally.
right, exactly. Yeah.
I mean, I heard stuff in 2018 that I couldn't confirm until just this year from locals. I mean, I heard really early on that there was a local man that people were asking questions about because he had a hour and a half time gap. Well, I kept on thinking the hour and a half time gap was like late at night, and maybe he went and moved the girls. But I wish more people would come forward and talk.
I think there's a lot of people that know stuff locally that are scared to death.
Oh, and a lot of people in Delphi. When I was at lunch today, man, people were looking at me like,
that's one tall glass of water.
yeah, that was it. Yeah, that's what they were saying. Yeah, I was sitting down, but they could tell.
Hey, I just want to prove a point. People ask me how big my hands are. I just want to show you this.
Oh, that's hilarious.
And it has coffee in it. It's real, you know. So here's to you, everybody.
I think you were one of those people down at the what is it called? Brick and Mortar today who were drinking about noon.
I was.
In Delphi.
I was at the office in Delphi drinking. No, here's okay. But
I was actually there tonight. Yeah.
But here's the problem: when you have people like eyewitnesses that lied, you have people like Ron Logan that lied, you have people in the family that lied. Things get very messy, and so. But the thought that I'm going to solve this case before law enforcement does, I just think is a ridiculous notion. Unless the killer calls me and confesses. You know. Well, yeah, those guys are a bunch of hacks.
Aren't they though?
Those true crime garage guys.
Yeah, you know
those true crime garage guys are really out there. Their ideas are just.
Yeah, you know what I did? I
heard they smell.
No, I tell you what, they're chintzy bastards though, because I called one of them yesterday and said, hey, I think I'll come to y'all's show in Nashville. He said, well, you can buy a ticket on there. You can buy a ticket online.
Well, first of all, the show isn't until July. So I don't know if you're going to be around till July.
Maybe I should have called Nick.
No, Nick would have told you. They're only letting us look. They're only letting us have 4 extra people.
And Skip's not one of your 4.
No, and one of them has to be his wife. I'm like, we had to get an extra ticket just for his wife. That's but
you guys should have a lot more pull than that.
Well, it's just because the space is limited as far as like the capacity. So if you're selling tickets, it's like, well, we could give up more, like we could have less seats and get more people in for free.
You are serious? You should, Captain, you should take him up on this seriously.
Sorry.
Amazing music.
No, I heard his stuff and it's excellent. It was amazing.
It's great, yeah.
But I get hit up a lot like, hey, let me help you. Maybe we could collaborate on something. But I have to do it.
Oh God.
Well, no, because I don't want to be like, oh, well, I do all the music.
Death a chance.
No,
he's seriously an amazing artist. You will not go wrong
No, I'm saying that I could like collaborate with him.
You don't
I
have to have your thumb on everything. I mean, come on.
That's
Skip
right.
it.
You're a musician too. What am I talking about?
Well, no, I have to be involved in it so I can at least say that I have helped. I've created everything.
I'm
for
sure that he would allow that in some fashion.
Yeah, yeah. So, cheers. I really liked his music at the start of the show.
Yeah, his music is really good.
Do we have any
Um,
more questions, or were we heated
I'm
enough?
looking here to see, but
Yeah, we had a bunch, but you were on like a 20-minute nonstop.
hey Skip, did you tell everybody where you are? Where you
Yeah, I'm in
went?
Delphi. I'm in Delphi. Well, I'm just outside of Delphi. I was there all day today.
No, but I'm just saying that you traveled to Delphi.
Yes, yeah, and it was like I said, it was. You can really feel the emotion when you're out there. I mean, it's real. It's kind of it's one of the strangest feelings I've ever had. And I know part of it's because you just know what happened, and it's so such a downer. But it's there's something there that's like, I mean, you almost feel like somebody's watching you, and it's not a great feeling at all. Mac was there till noon. I was there after that. When I waited till it started raining. All right, so that was good. You went when it was clear.
How many times have you visited? Melodramatic Monday wants to know.
Oh, I was going one time earlier, and I totaled my car, and then so today was the first time. I'm going back tomorrow because the weather wasn't great this afternoon.
Oops.
But it's supposed to be nice.
Chat's moving fast. Alicia wants to know: did going to Delphi change your thoughts on anything?
Yeah, it did. Yeah, actually, it did. It gave me a better idea of the scale of the area, and just the feeling of it. What the Hoosier Heartland Highway is, the amount of traffic on it, 300. How there until you really go, it's hard to get a sense of how isolated this place is. I mean, it's pretty. I know if you're from a small town, it probably wouldn't seem that way, but it really is. It's not somewhere you just kind of stumble upon.
No, it's not. It's kind of out there.
It's a pretty little town. It's they don't seem to love people coming in from the outside, or at least maybe just not me. But everybody was very nice to me, actually.
I can't imagine anyone not being nice to you.
You can't imagine anyone being nice to me?
I can't imagine anyone not being nice to you.
Oh, yeah, everybody was nice to me. Everyone was.
They must have been drunk.
They must have been drunk.
There were two of them that were drunk, yeah.
So, has anyone considered the possibility of a connection between the murders and the ISP officer who died in a house fire with her teenage daughter?
Meaning that they think somebody in ISP would have been responsible for the Delphi.
Yeah, I'm not sure I think she thinks it's related somehow.
Here's the problem that I have, and maybe I'm a little too blue blood for people, but most law enforcement officers get into law enforcement to make a difference. And so if there's a scumbag that's going to make them look bad and they're doing wrong things, the cops are not going to just turn a blind eye just because he's a police officer.
Yeah.
If that makes sense.
Can I answer Joe real quick? I don't think that they didn't know who I was. They just knew I was not a familiar face. How long does it take to walk fast from the to the Wilson Bridge from crime scene? Do you know, please? I'll know tomorrow. I promise you, and I'll put it in the comments.
I went to the trails before the murder took place, so I used to live in Indiana, and so I was actually I've been to Delphi a few times, but I was only at the trails one time. So when people have asked me to go back to Delphi, I don't know if there's any reason why I would need to go back since I've been there before, if that makes any sense.
And you said you did go to the trails?
Yeah. I lived in Richmond, Indiana for years. And so we'd go stop in little cities. We happened to just, I mean, so when it happened, when the murders took place, it wasn't like the first time I ever heard the the city of Delphi because I was there.
So what is your thought of that bridge?
Well, I still think that law enforcement is correct that somebody had knowledge of that bridge. That bridge is not a known trail. I mean, it's a trail, but it's a trail less traveled.
Yes.
And just like people have to understand that people that go to that park enough know that the waterway is a trail. People would go hiking instead of going on a path or like a trail, right? They would go along those waters because there's a lot of sandbar and there's a lot of rocks, and if you can't travel through that, you can then go to you can jump up to the edge and follow the water around as a trail. The reason why that's important is because if the murders took place at the water, the person would know. Okay, it's just like if the murders took place on a trail, you wouldn't just leave the bodies in the middle of the trail. You would move them if you didn't want somebody to see them right away. The waterway is a trail, so you can't leave the bodies there, if that makes any sense at all.
Because people would see them.
Yeah, they would not only see them from the bridge, but they'd see them because they would be walking the waterways.
Skip, could
Yes.
you possibly film it and get some shots where a car could park, please? It's paramount. Google does not show one part that they need to see in Sydney, Australia.
Okay, Chihuahua, where exactly do you get some shots where a car could park? Where?
I think she's thinking maybe on the private drive.
Oh yeah, as a matter of fact,
Yeah, or at the trail.
I will be able to get that shot for you tomorrow.
Yeah, or at the trailhead. I'd like to see
give
what
some permission on some.
Well, I think Garrett Kurtz talked about driving a car down the trail to the bridge. He talked about that they used to take a car back there.
Yeah, Kurtz, is a fascinating character because of his connection to Logan,
Right.
and the property. He also I also believe that he claims that he saw that he wasn't involved in the murders, but he saw a video of the murders, which I always thought was a very strange comment.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
I agree with that too.
Well, if Walla will verify that's where she wants the photos, I'll be more than happy to get them.
Did you hear that, Chihuahua? Can you verify where you want him to film tomorrow? Just put it in the chat so we know.
I also don't think people understand how scary that bridge is.
I think it's terrifying.
It is
terrifying.
Yeah.
Now, when I went to the trails, because this is before the crime ever took place, we never went on the bridge. We were also there with two little kids, so we weren't going to go on anything dangerous. They probably would have loved it, like, oh, we're going on something dangerous, but also like the entrance. I think because of the crime scene, they've kind of tried to be respectful, and they've made the entrance to the bridge, I think, a little nicer now. Which is strange to me because that like invites people. But I mean, I remember seeing like the entrance to the bridge, but it was not inviting at all back when I went. So
you asked Kristen, was there anything about the change? When you're out there, you're like, I can't imagine this guy not knowing what was underneath the bridge when he and the girls went down the hill. I can't imagine this guy not knowing what was behind him. when he approached the girls.
I'm still convinced he came from the others. I'm still convinced that the girls walked across the bridge and he was already there.
And he came from the south end?
Yeah, well, he didn't come from anywhere. They came to him. And then I think what he did was he walked out on the bridge to make sure there was nobody underneath it. And then he turned around. And by him turning around, that's what alarmed the girls.
Right.
And maybe that's why she started filming him, you know.
I've often thought that that was very, very possible. And I know that law enforcement did come out and say that the YouTube community had it wrong as to how it went down. So by saying that, obviously they could be lying or whatever, but I definitely don't think it was like a lot of us think. I think it happened some other way.
Yeah, I don't think he would have even addressed it if it was if somebody had, you know, gotten it right. There would be no reason. I mean, I think he was trying to make a point. I think it was Holman, right? They came out and said that. One of them, anyway. I think, you know, I don't see any reason why he would have even said anything about it. So I think everybody has been wrong. That's why I've always kind of tried to work from a place of, hey, starting right there, everybody's theory is wrong, so let's come up with something different.
Well, you know, I heard Sleuth say, and I don't remember how long ago, but he brought up the fact that he could have left, or they could have left, whatever, through Wilson Bridge. You know, I still like the hitchhiker hypothesis that Skip and I talked about on my show a lot. But Wilson Bridge is not that far, and it would be a way to get out of there without being seen.
Well, that's certainly what it seems like happened. Or
well, and if they're correct that there was a large amount of blood, then you wouldn't want to be seen. You wouldn't take your chance by going across that bridge. Because if I go across that bridge, and even though it was kind of like protocol that if somebody was on the bridge, you didn't join them. So if somebody's crossing the bridge, you wouldn't just go, oh, well, we'll cross them on the other side. It was kind of known that if somebody's on the bridge, you just kind of wait for them.
Well, here's the thing, though. Up until a couple of years ago, it was generally accepted that bridge guy left back through the trails, because that's what the witness testimony, or that's what the witness statement was.
Right.
Or at least that was what was being told on social media as the witness statement, was that he saw him leaving, going back to the Freedom Bridge. Now nobody believes that, because it just doesn't make any sense. He wouldn't have left. He wouldn't have left back on the trail. But
did you see Chihuahua's?
Film as much again near the space on the side of the road where. Okay, yeah, I will. I'll get all that area. I'll get the CPS. I'll get all right there at the Mears lot. All of that. Let's see, but how could he have known they were going to cross the bridge? It's a good question. Yeah, great question.
Well, you have to remember that at 2:07, roughly it was 2:07. Wasn't that when they posted a picture of themselves on Snapchat?
Yes.
If this guy was following them on Snapchat, and at 2:07, I'm at let's just say, hypothetically, I'm at the park, and I just happened to follow one of these girls on Snapchat, and then I check my phone and see the girl that posted that they're on the other side of the bridge. And if I'm close enough, I could go, oh, well, let me go over there, if the person was following them on Snapchat.
I think again, that's another example of information that is changed. You know, until recently, most people thought that there wasn't a digital connection. A lot of people did, just because it makes more sense that in an area that remote that would be just some random. But
well, Chris, maybe Kristen, maybe you can answer me this question. For the last 5 years, the family's been pretty adamant that they weren't talking to anybody online. I mean, is that a correct statement?
That they want to what?
For the last 5 years, the family was pretty adamant that the girls weren't talking to anybody online.
Yes. When law enforcement came out early in 2017 and said there was no catfishing, the family came right along with them and said absolutely not. They were not talking to anyone.
Yeah, which I always thought was a complete bullshit statement because a couple reasons. One, we have a young kid that came forward to tell law enforcement, hey, I'm friends with them and they were talking to people online. And when that boy came forward and said that to law enforcement, then in my mind, I said, okay, well, if that is true, then maybe there's some truth to this. Now, I know that her phone was having problems, but, they do when you reset a phone, you reset a phone normally for a reason, not just some glitch. But when I came out and said that, years ago, I mean, people tried to crucify me on a cross. And
Yep.
now, 5 years later, all of a sudden you're telling me that there's
Yep.
something. We like this social media aspect.
See, I'm one of those people because if you remember, Captain, when it first happened, they called it the Snapchat murders.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, and that quickly absolutely got squashed in the media and it became the Delphi murders somehow.
Well, part of it, to be honest with you, unfortunately, people talked about it like it was some kind of victim blaming or something. And so a lot of people just kind of stayed away from it.
Yeah, and look, there's a bunch of people. Again, we live in a society of a bunch of children, right? We got 30-year-old children, 40-year-old children, 50-year-old children. Let's be freaking adults, right? I'm going somewhere with that.
I believe you.
But it's
I want to be an adult.
If girls flirt with boys in public or in real life, they're going to do it with social media. And so you're not going to tell me that a 13 and 14-year-old girl gets murdered and we're not going to look into their phones and we're not going to look into their social media content. I mean, this information is going to tell you who they're closest to.
Yeah, it almost seemed like one of the biggest aspects of any investigation is victimology. It was almost like that was ignored. It was like, why isn't that being focused on more? Because that tells law enforcement a lot about who the potential suspects are.
Well, hold on a second. Ask this Jennifer girl, where she says no victim bashing. What's victim bashing?
Saying the girls were talking online to guys.
Oh, she wasn't talking to you. She was talking to somebody in the chat that was accusing Kelsey. She wasn't talking about you guys.
Yeah, I think people are just not freaking adults. It's also like when people go, look, the rumor I heard was that Kelsey lied to law enforcement, and then law enforcement had to go hard at her in the paint to make sure she wasn't involved in any of this. Now, I don't know how factually true that is or not, but when these people say, oh, well, Kelsey said something 5 years ago, and then last week she said something different. I can't even remember what I had for breakfast today. So let's be adults and have the understanding that also during this traumatic time that this shit is happening. It's my argument with the John Benet Ramsey theory when they go, well, Patsy Ramsey and John Ramsey, they lied about what happened early on. Well, they tell you for the next 10 years before Patsy died, it was pure chaos. And I don't remember anything.
Right.
I mean, Kelsey even says in an early interview, interview that just happened recently, she was saying, I don't really remember anything until the funerals.
Yeah, see that, and one of the things law enforcement would have needed to do early on was to try to establish the timeline, and it started with her. The timeline starts when she drops those girls off in terms of the location. And so if there was any discrepancy there because she was, like I said, she doesn't remember all that because of the trauma, then that sets it back a little ways because that's where they have to start the timeline. They have to say, okay, she dropped them off at 1:36 or 1:30, whatever it was, and that's based on a telephone call by one of the girls or Kelsey or whoever. So that may have been part of the issue with that aspect of the case, was that they had to get Kelsey back kind of in the right frame of mind to even establish where the timeline began, because all of that other stuff goes with it. When bridge guy was seen coming, because all of those times get really pretty close, there at first of it. And so they have to make sure that, if he's seen at this time, it was based on them being dropped off, so he's behind him and all that. And that was probably part of it. That's unfortunate, that she was the one that dropped him off, and that she's the one that's had so much trauma because of it, emotionally, and memory probably hasn't been great and all that. So they're trying to get her down to the second, and she can't think anything like that.
Yeah, but I again, this goes back to people wanting to protect the family. If you're law enforcement and the girl that's supposed to pick them up did not pick them up, and then you ask her some questions and you find out that she's giving you false information, what are you going to do?
You want to find out why. Yeah.
You are going to grill her. You are going to uncover every stone until you can rule her in and out. And I guarantee you they did that with Kelsey. I guarantee
they would listen. They were trying to establish that time, and they had to. That's where it starts. That's the crucial time in the timeline is
yeah, and that's the other thing.
If she's wavering on that, then there you got a problem. I'm not saying it's her fault that she's lying. I'm saying she's gone through so much trauma, she doesn't remember. Like you said, people don't even remember that week or 2 weeks that happened. So I'm sure that was an issue.
I mean, I think one of the big problems too in the true crime space right now is this idea that people are saying, like, well, like True Crime Garage would have to have permission from the family to cover somebody's case. And I think this notion is ridiculous because in so many of these cases, family members are involved. So if you give the power to the family to decide who gets to talk about the case and who doesn't talk about the case,
But Mrs. Thing asked about the dogs trailing all this blood. The dogs
there's no dogs.
They got canceled.
Yeah, there was no dogs.
Yeah, the law enforcement canceled them once they found the girls.
That was a mistake that law enforcement made.
Yeah, they've admitted. I mean, they admitted that. And they know it is. They know that they could have gained some information about exit routes and things like that if they would have kept them coming in. Split second decisions are hard, and you're dealing with a law enforcement agency or a department that's doesn't have a lot of experience in double murders, and so.
No, I totally agree. I'm sorry. I'm listening to you guys, but I've got a lot of trolls right now in the chat, so my mods are taking care of it. And Captain, just so you know, that Jennifer girl she's one of my mods. That's Jennifer.
Rochelle. Is that how you say
Jennifer
it?
Rochelle, yes.
Yeah.
Hey,
She's
Amanda.
awesome.
I only called her the Jennifer girl because I didn't want to mispronounce Rochelle. But no. But here's the other thing too with these losers that will go, oh well, Kelsey's the murderer or whatever. Here's the problem. If I did a YouTube group, I wouldn't even reply to them. I want to block them. I want to do anything. We need to grow up as a society, and just like when somebody acts like a child, you just don't respond to them. By blocking them, they keep doing it. They'll keep signing up with a different name. They'll keep
Like
coming
big
back.
juice, like big
And
juicy
what-
cock.
Yeah,
That's
And
an
it's like-
appropriate name.
it's sad, but this is the world that we live in.
Let's say Carol's asking, hey, Skip, if you were driving on the private drive towards the bridge to go under, at the time the girls were, let's see where, at the time the girls were crossing, would you see their figures from the car? It depends on where on the private drive you were, but yeah, there's portions of it you could see. You could see from the private drive somebody walking across. I think what she's getting at is that maybe he was down below and that's how he, and then came up the hill, and that's possible. That's a steep hill to climb to it's probably not the easiest way to do it, but
Well, I think the reason why the mistake of the dog calling off the dog search was a mistake is because they could have went to the crime scene and they could have tried to see where the dogs took the scent, because if there was blood transferred to the killer, the dog probably could have picked up that scent and followed that scent somewhere. Maybe it takes you to the CPS building. Maybe it takes you to the graveyard. Maybe it takes you back across the bridge. But I think it would give law enforcement some idea of where this individual left.
You want to respond to that, Skip?
what does it say?
Nick and the captain are very good and knowledgeable on this subject. I followed them from day one on this case. However, Skip Jansen is the polar opposite. He's very dangerous to this case.
Jesus.
Well, he is a dangerous.
Somebody who sees the real deal.
He is a dangerous man and should be cuffed and arrested for potential future crimes. Was that guy being serious, or
He was being serious.
That's fine. I don't. I know
That's why I said there's just these people that just choose to hate him, and it's just beyond belief. It's just crazy.
Well, the one thing that me and Skip have disagreed on, and I think he would back me up on this, I think he would agree with the disagreement, is I think once Skip presented this theory about eyewitness that lied and that he should be looked at as a possible suspect, I think once he brought that up, he felt the need to try to convince people online. And I told him he was having all these conversations and spending so much time. And I was like, it is not your job to convince everybody online that your theory makes sense. Does that make sense, Skip?
Yeah, and I've always said it's a theory. It's theory, no more, no less. It's
a logical theory.
Yeah, I mean, nobody's theory they know to be 100% true, be impossible. You take as much, but you think as pragmatically as you can and use as much logic as you can and come up with the best theory that's based on the information we have. But I've never said that it is anything other than a theory.
No, and I think that's what I wish people would do more often, but they can't help it. It's like, look, and I'm guilty of it too. It'll be late night. I don't know what to do. I go to YouTube and type in Delphi, see if there's new information that I can digest. But I don't think that's always that helpful. And I also don't think Reddit's the most helpful thing because there's so much infighting for no reason, just this hierarchy of information.
Well, the whole thing with, when you and Skip got together and did your podcast, True Crime Garage, and Skip's theory was put out there, for some reason, the theory just blew up as it was just laminated with Skip's. It's on his forehead. I mean, he walks around, I'm sure in his daily life, and Skip's theory is blasted on his forehead because, I mean, it's awful. I mean, we all have ideas. We all have theories. We all have POIs or whatever. And what's always bothered me and truly bothered me about this is that the person that you guys were talking about and discussing put themselves in the crime scene. They made themselves part of that murder scene. We didn't do that. You guys didn't do that. You didn't go pull somebody out of a hat and say, this is my POI. He put himself there. So
well, and that's the
you
big
have to
problem.
look at that.
That's why just asking to just consider it, because I mean, there's just a lot of things about it that he should. I mean, there's been POIs that are talked about that, I mean, certainly weren't there. I mean, first of all, you've got to be there to commit the crime. I'm not going to argue with anybody if they it's not him. Fine, if you don't want to believe, whatever. But he was there.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is when people bring up like Keegan Kline or Tony Kline, I say, well, the first thing you have to prove is that they were actually there. 43 miles away in a rural area is a very long distance. My father lives about 27 miles from me. It took me almost an hour to get there today. So 43 miles because they're back roads. Some of these roads you can only go 45, 50 miles an hour on. You're talking about an hour time frame just to get there. And then that's far away. Even people though want to say, well, Tony Kline and Keegan Kline, they could have had an understanding of this park. Well, that was 45 minutes. It's 43 miles away. That's very far in a rural area. But so I anytime somebody brings up a suspect, I always tell them first, you have to prove that he was there.
Yeah, that's why I stopped talking about POI, just because you never could have. It's just hard to have a conversation with somebody about it. It's always combative and contentious. So when it gets that way and you can't have a decent conversation with someone, there's no really reason to bring it up.
Exactly.
Well, look, the internet's full of just the stupidest people you ever.
I love the fact that you just call them out so blatantly.
But they are. But it's like I had this lady show me a picture of a guy with jeans on, with his hands in his pocket, and said, "Do you think I should call this tip in?" Because he bought some jeans. Like, I don't know what kind of glue you're sniffing, lady, but I would love to have some of it.
Well, one of the first things that you have to do in these cases is you have to look at the evidence, as you said, but you have to, if you're going to have a POI, you have to be able to place them at the crime scene. If you can't place them at the crime scene, they can't be your POI. I mean, if they're across the country or if they're across the counties doing something else, they have to be able to be at that crime scene. And I'm talking about in the woods with the girls.
Yeah, and I think the problem is everybody looks at a crime like this and that they think it's 100% sexually motivated. I don't know if I don't know if there's evidence that proves that or not, but it's like, if you Google search or if you do a background check of just the crime scene area, I think it's like 29 registered sex offenders come up within a mile of the crime scene.
Yes.
29. I
Yeah.
don't know if Delphi is just full of the biggest losers in the world, but that's a lot. And it's like, I don't know. Again, I don't know if there's a sexual component to this. I know Nick 100% believes that there's a sexual component. I don't think that matters. I think you have to start with who was
Thank
there,
you, Alicia.
who was there, who can we prove was there, and can you? I mean, it's just like when they were talking about Chadwell, or they talk about this guy or that guy, or let's start by can we prove that he was there?
Yeah, and the prosecutor's guy is going to make that decision because he's the one that's got he's the one that's going to get a W or an L checked by his name when it's all said and done. And so he's an elected official. He's not gonna walk in there with can't put a guy within 45 miles of Delphi. I can promise you. He's not going to go in there and embarrass himself.
And that's exactly, Mandy, that's exactly what the captain said. If you have to be able to go back and say, why does this not work?
I agree. Yeah, look, Amanda's a friend of mine. She's
well, then we can't trust the damn words she says.
She's a very smart girl. She really is a smart gal. She thinks things through. We don't always agree on stuff, but she's right. I've coached AAU basketball for 20 years, and so self-scouting is the same. It's the same principle. It's you identify the weaknesses you have. It's the hardest thing to do for a coach is to self-scout because you got to be totally honest with yourself. About this is my team. These are our strengths. These are our weaknesses. Same thing with looking at your own theory.
Yeah, I mean, if you watch the movie Theory of Everything, Stephen Hawkins, right? And he was talking about like he spent most of his life trying to prove a theory, and then he spent the rest of his life trying to prove himself wrong. And this guy was beyond a genius. And I just think people have a really hard time. It's the pendulum. If this proves that they're guilty, now try to prove that they're innocent. And what you'll find is it's a lot easier to do if you're okay with being wrong. But look, we live in a world of a bunch of dumb idiots. I used to teach guitar lessons all the time. And it's really hard for somebody in their 30s and 40s to start learning guitar. And one of the reasons is they start thinking in their head, for whatever reason, I'm 40 years old. I should know how to do this. And it's like, but you've never played guitar before. Why would you know how to do this? As far as the world of guitar, you're a baby, right? It's your first day with guitar, right? But as we grow older, we have this fear of not asking questions or never being wrong. Like, what's wrong with being wrong? Like, I would rather ask the question, and maybe you think I'm stupid for asking the question, but now I have the knowledge.
Social media.
No, I totally understand that.
I've seen people fight to the death to not be wrong.
I mean, it's
on social
it's just
media.
Crazy. Like I said, I mean, I think if we all put our heads together and worked in collaboration together and threw all of our ideas together, we'd get more places than if people would stop the arguing and the bickering.
Sure, but that requires looking at it as a we, not a me, not a you, a we. How often do you see that nowadays?
It requires what?
That we have
looking at it like what? I didn't hear it.
It requires us looking at it as we. We're working on this, not you, me. That's the way we view things now. You're asking people to work together and all that kind of stuff, and that's that's exactly the opposite mindset of what people act like on social media.
Well, and it's just like when I started talking with Skip about this, DP theory, you have to question, do you want to put this out? What, in my mind, really changed everything for me was this makes all the logical sense in the world. If eyewitness lies to law enforcement, if eyewitness lies online, if this eyewitness changes his story, if this eyewitness contradicts himself, if you were law enforcement, would you therefore look into this person based off of that evidence? And every time the answer is hell yes, I'd look into him.
Yes.
So
well, you could even simplify it like this. You could say, and again, I'm not trying to put. I don't want people to think I'm pushing this, okay? Because I don't like talking about it anymore. But if you are a witness and you lie about it, and they disregard that's the sketch you were a part of and put out a sketch that looks like you. If that doesn't make you at least raise an eyebrow, then you're not looking.
You have to. It's a red flag. I mean, it's you just do. You can't. You have to approach this case.
I'm not saying that makes him BG. I'm just saying, don't call the people who see that as logical idiots.
No. Yeah.
And that's what happened.
And I have a lot of problems with law enforcement because there's a timeline online, and it's through the state that I saw it. But one of the things was before 2019, a little bit before the 2019 press conference, they came out and said, stop doing the side-by-sides. Okay, why aren't we doing the side-by-sides anymore? Because they knew in 2019 we're going to change the freaking sketch on you. So all those side-by-sides become obsolete, right? But then they come out with this new sketch, and if you put any side-by-side with the new sketch, you're crucified. And it's like, the way I viewed it was, you guys told us to stop doing side-by-sides, and then you put out a new sketch. So since you put out the new sketch, am I supposed to go back to side-by-sides or not? And then you put out a side-by-side online and everybody just trashes you like you're the world's worst person, like somehow that, you just kick somebody's dog or something. No, Fahmy, it's not spelled correctly. It's Fahmy, Fahmy. Fahmy Malik was not the coroner. And also, there were so many. Here's what I do know: the coroner was not experienced enough to do this autopsy.
Well, the coroner didn't do the autopsy. The autopsy was done in Terre Haute by a medical examiner.
Right.
But that's the thing that a lot of people don't understand, that the coroner in these counties, some counties have coroners, and then they have MEs that work at other hospitals or whatever that do the autopsies for them, and the coroner just does the affidavits for death, and they go and appear before when they have the hearings for manner of death and things like that in court. That's what the coroners do.
Well, no, and I think the other thing too that people have to understand, if there's FBI all over the place, you think FBI is not going to have their hand on this report at all? It's not likely. It's not very logical. So I'd be interested to see what that report states.
But you're absolutely right, Captain. He was 22 years old, and it was a mess when he left. They said that department was absolutely a nightmare. when he left.
Why did they think that he was qualified for that?
Well, his father.
Well, I mean, his father may have thought he was qualified, but why
No,
did
his father probably didn't think he was qualified. He probably just didn't want his son to be a loser. That's,
Yeah. In those small towns, you have that nepotism because they don't have very many people. So they have to choose from who they have. And a lot of it stays family. I mean,
wasn't it the father was the coroner, made his son the coroner, and he became assistant coroner. So he stayed in there with him just to give him the title, I guess.
Well, really quick.
Going forward.
Well, really quick, I just want to reply to Jennifer. I've seen way too many tiny weenies in here.
Hey, Mel, how are you? Dr. Kors is the medical examiner. Jordan Cree was the son of the former coroner, and he was still in college
when he was the coroner. He was in college when he was the coroner.
Isn't that crazy?
So obviously, there's not any requirements, really.
I mean,
yeah, but people again, as much as we want to go, oh, that's so dumb. Why would they do that? Well, this is a town of less than 5,000 people, right?
Less than 3,000, 2,900.
Yeah. So it's like, but I did want, you never responded to the comment, Jennifer Rochelle said something about seeing too many tiny weenies in here tonight.
Seeing too many what?
Tiny weenies. Tiny weenies.
That's what Jennifer Rochelle said?
Yeah, I think, Kristen, we come on your show. We try to be nice. And
wait a minute.
She did not. Everybody says we have tiny weenies.
She was not talking about you.
I mean, I'm not saying it's big, but I'm not saying it's tiny.
Yeah, Catherine was breaking it now.
She was talking about the trolls.
I heard it was average size.
Oh, God.
It's cold in here.
Yeah, she was absolutely referring to the trolls. Because they've been crazy tonight for them. So
it's probably Nick.
What's the name? Is it my county, the judge, county attorney? What was that?
What does that say?
I know where she lives, so I know the state. So, and sheriff all have the same last name. Yeah, that's awesome. Yeah, perfect. Yeah.
Yeah, I think it just depends on where you live.
I mean, why not everybody in charge have the same damn last name? I mean, can't get more synergy than that right there. Perfect. What can go wrong?
Michelle, you're funny. Yeah, they've had really interesting usernames tonight, showing that they have teeny weenies.
I haven't seen the trolls. What have they been saying?
Just a lot of stuff about weenies.
Sorry, guys. I apologize.
I didn't know Kristen's show was so racy. It's all about penises in here.
It just depends on who's the guest.
Well, once me and Skip show up, it's all about the penis.
It just goes down the drain.
Yeah.
I mean, you just bring it out in people. What can we say?
We bring out the penises.
You know what they say? Big hands. You know what they say about big hands?
Hey, back on track.
Yes.
Corn dogs. So if the coroner didn't do the actual autopsies, who did? Medical examiner.
The medical examiner in Terre Haute.
In Terre Haute, yeah.
Is where that was done.
That would be a state medical examiner.
So, you guys are bad. Look at the chat's even gone downhill.
Again, you're talking still about custodial things.
You gotta laugh when you're talking about this stuff sometimes.
Well, and just like look at the prosecutors. I mean, you're going to tell me the prosecutors in this county are going to be fit to try this case? And that's not a knock on anybody. That's just
the guy who's the prosecutor who won't be trying this case. But when they voted him in after Ives retired, he was he was on the defense side of it, so he was and public defender. So he basically represented all the scumbag guys in 3 or 4 counties there. And so they thought that was a good idea to make him knowing. There was even an article in the local paper there where it said, we know that we're going to have to bring in special prosecutors because of the prosecutor's past of being a public defender, but we still think it's a good idea to do it. Also, here's another thing about conflict of interest. He was in private practice. He represented Deer Creek Township, Carroll County Council, and they were the ones voting on bringing him in. But nobody seemed to think that was a problem.
Yeah. Well,
Until
the other
there's a
problem.
Yeah,
The
but
other
hold
problem
on.
I have with the prosecutor, with Nick McClellan, is the fact that there's got to be. I mean, Shane Evans was working for him when he was still in high school, when he was in college. They have a history, and there's got to be a reason why he just drops out of the mayor's position to go work for Nick.
Yeah, but I think the problem with this case, especially when people talk about law enforcement or why this person was put in this position, it comes down to it's a small podunk town.
Yeah.
And it is there's nothing nefarious about it. I mean, again, people that want to say, well, this case isn't being solved because the cops are covering for somebody or they're covering for one of their own. You're going to tell me that these guys that signed up to serve and protect their county saw these girls' murder scene and they just don't give a shit about these 2 victims? No way.
No, I don't think that at all. I do think in small towns though that certain groups get their people in positions they want them to be in.
Oh yeah.
But that's just politics, It's
But again, the idea that somebody would be covering up for their buddy's kid or for their buddy.
Yeah, I don't. Yeah,
you have to be a horrible human.
Yes.
You have to be almost as bad as that murderer to cover up for this murderer. And maybe somebody in the murderer's family would cover for him, because you might do more for blood than you would, But I also think it's just possible that nobody knows, that nobody has power to come forward.
It was Ann says, anybody think there were 2 perpetrators? Yeah, I think a lot of people think that. I think the 2 perpetrators theory is law enforcement has said several times that they don't, they say there's one guy at the bridge, the guy talking is the man on the bridge and things like that. It's one guy talking and things like that. Doesn't mean that there's not another person somewhere that helped, whether it be during, before, during, or after.
I lean towards it's more likely that it's one.
I do too, but I think there could have been some
I think
Cold Truth was asking about it's going to be hard to find. It's going to be almost impossible to find a jury there.
I want to know if there is only one or if there's more than one, how law enforcement knows that. If they're gonna double down that it was only one perpetrator, they've got to know something as to why.
Well, I argue with this 43 seconds of audio.
Hold that, or keep that thought. You can keep talking. I gotta grab some water. I'll be right back.
I don't know if I should talk.
Yeah, talk.
Oh no, I don't know if this 43 seconds of audio is correct or not. I wonder if the audio clip is longer, but 43 seconds is just the total of audible audio.
Could be that, or it could be just that segment of
Right.
the audio, the part that's on actually up on the bridge, or there's a lot of reasons that it certainly seems logical that it would be if she maintained the phone that there would be more.
There, somebody's asking if you're from Indiana.
If I'm from where?
Indiana.
No, I live in Florida, but I'm in Indiana right now.
Have you been to the office?
Yes. I was there today.
Sorry, guys.
I've been to brick and mortar, the office. I just wanted to check out most everything, just to see, because when you see things online and stuff like that, it's hard to gauge everything. But it's a pretty little town. It's
Hey, Jennifer, thank you. Thank you so much.
What's the sound? It's probably Skip typing on his phone.
No, with me tapping my feet.
Oh.
What's that sound?
That's probably what it was.
It's Skip.
It must be Skip.
It is. It's my nervous end. Yeah, pick on Skip. Go ahead.
Yeah, so what I was saying, Kristen, is that they claim that there's 43 seconds of audio, but I wonder if that is 43 seconds of audible audio. I mean, look, if I record something for 9 minutes, right, and only 40 seconds is audible, then the other 8 minutes really doesn't matter. You see what I'm saying?
Yep.
So, but again, but a lot of people have this thought of, that law enforcement owes it to the public to release more information.
Look, law enforcement has come out and said they think they know this guy's following the case, right? Why would they show him their hand? I mean, why would they allow him to come up with reasons for whatever? Stay one step ahead. They wouldn't. I mean, I think that was why there's an instance where in 2018, before this new sketch came out, Holman was asked about DNA, and he said, "Yeah, we got a ton of it." 2020, he was asked, and he said, "I can't, confirm or deny." And in between that, in 2019, Carter was very clear about, we think this guy's following the case. We think, and so, the inference there is that, hey, they basically shut down the information flow. I know the public had to make the public happy, but I think the reason they've shut down the information flow is to keep BG from, looking at their hand.
Yeah, if you believe law enforcement, then you believe they identified this person in 2019. And so they've been building the case since then. But then, you have comments, like Becky Patty came out, a couple weeks ago and said they definitely have DNA. And then they shared where those statements were in print. I believe that they definitely have at least a sample of DNA, meaning that I can rule you in or out, but I can't rule it to be you 100%.
Hey, can you pull up Purdue RN question after this? I think it's interesting. Do you think the perpetrator local or drive-by? I think local.
Yeah, they stated over and over local.
This is a good question. Do you think police? I'll say this. That's one of those things that you wonder, how does a rumor like that ever get started? So you think, yeah, there's got to be some truth to it, right? But how did it get there? Was it done after the fact? Was it done right after the murders, I mean, that would suggest that he was either carrying it on his person or had thought ahead and put it and knew where he was going to take the girls. And now, you know, and if that's true, now you think about what the Ron Logan affidavit said, and why law enforcement was looking so closely at all that, and some of that might start making sense. God, that's, I mean, again, why would somebody make that up? You know, a rumor like that. But at the same time, it's certainly unusual.
But
So you guys know, my moderator Michelle here, she is a CSI, just so you guys know, down in Florida. So she's got a lot of wealth of information, but that's what she said.
Hey, I've got a question for her then.
Okay.
Okay, I was told by somebody who's a great source that the crime scene techs in this case were told to not speak to one another about any of their findings, to stay just, you know, in their lane and collect the evidence they're collecting. And I've asked several law enforcement people about that, and they said they've never heard of it. It says highly unusual that would be what the crime scene techs would be instructed. So I would ask Michelle, does that suggest anything to her about the strangeness or the unusual of the crime scene, and possibly tell us anything else?
Did you hear that, Michelle? He asked you that question about the crime scene techs being told not to talk to one another and stay in their own areas where they were collecting evidence. Have you ever heard of that being done before? Let's see.
I would just like to know from her, you know, from being an experienced person, that does that tell her anything? Does that suggest anything about the crime scene?
Yeah.
I mean, I don't think anybody's arguing that the crime scene wasn't unusual. I mean, I think that's pretty clear. You know, but I'd like to, you know, maybe just have somebody with expertise on it talk about it.
Yeah. What about this, guys?
Vanessa,
do you think anybody has gag orders on them?
FBI protocol. It's not one of the people I talked to is an FBI agent, and he said that it was highly unusual for him.
Oh, okay. I got that one. I've felt for a long time that the witnesses have been gagged.
Except the ones that didn't want to be gagged.
Well, I think, I don't know if gag orders would be the correct term. I think they're probably asked not to speak about this.
Yes.
But I think most of the time that's the case.
I think Michelle just answered it, didn't she? They just said they do that sometimes, not usually, but it could be to stay focused to the nature and size of different parts of different scenes that were there.
So Michelle says they do that sometimes, not usually, but it could be so they could stay focused due to the nature and the size of the different parts of different scenes that there were. Because there was a huge crime scene out there.
Yeah, maybe that suggests that there was a lot of different things. I mean, if it was staged to look like something unusual, I mean, it could literally be anything. The question is, would somebody have the ability to really stage it like that if it wasn't planned? I mean, everything to do that, and it seems like it would almost have to be planned to the extent of even knowing where it was going to take place.
So I had Perry was on a couple lives ago in my chat, but he did a recent video, Cop Facts did, about motive. And he said that's what we all should be focusing on right now. is follow the motive.
Yeah, he and I talked about that a lot because he wanted to know what the motive was for it, and I told him that I explained it all to him. Because when you first hear it, it's kind of far fetched, where you think maybe, but then he thought it was a very legitimate motive, which surprised me a little bit. But there's a drug component, kind of being the impetus for what happened, but it has a little more of a personal feel to it.
Yeah, but the problem is, unless they release a ton of new information, we don't have anything logical to go off of us to tell us what the motivation was.
Yeah.
And so
that's why I don't even like talking
so
about
when
it.
somebody goes, oh, we need to focus, when somebody says that, to me, it sounds like we need to focus on nonsense.
Well,
we need to focus on just speculating.
I think what he's saying. I think from what I know up here, I think what he's saying is, if we know the motive, we'll know who the guy is.
Right. And when somebody says we should focus on this, it's like, we have enough people doing live streams every freaking day on every freaking subject of this case.
Well, not everybody's perfect like you are, Mr. Perfect.
Yeah.
I just think that Perry's got a lot of law enforcement background as well, and he did.
But what is that? Oh, hold on.
Plus, he's a very sexy man. Let's face it. I mean, come on.
He's a what?
Very sexy man.
Oh, he's such a nice guy.
Let's call it space.
He's such a nice guy. But I think that what he was trying to get at is that we, can we gain anything from what that motive might have been from what we already know? I mean, you brought it up, part of it, Captain, earlier in the show when you were talking about Derek and you were talking about some of the drug stuff that we know. Could that be a motive in this whole scenario?
Yeah, I mean, look, what we do know is that he turned on people. We know that he has a arrest history. So if you're selling drugs, and we also know in that area there's been a lot of deaths and overdoses because of fentanyl. And if he sold something that somebody died on, that's obviously motivation for them to get back at you. And maybe they go, well, we're not going to get back at him. We're going to get back at him through his family members.
Yeah.
The only far-fetched thing about that theory, I think, is that, so you're going to tell me to get back at this guy, you're going to go after his daughter and kill her and her friend.
Maybe if the guy, well, yeah, again, you're trying to get into somebody's mind, which is hard to do. And, but if the guy, what if you're trying to get in touch with him and you're trying to get, and he won't return your call and it's just brewing, and it finally gets to the point where it's like, all right, I'm just going to, I'm just saying, I don't like talking about motive either, because look, Perry's right. If you figure out the motive, you'll know who it is.
That's what he was saying.
Yeah,
if you figure out the motive, you're going to figure out who he is.
Right.
There's a motive somewhere that motivated this killing. What is that?
But I also think it's very possible that there could have been a connection trying to be made, and whether the girls fought back or there was some kind of conflict, then that kind of changes the whole game. Well, it doesn't make it an accidental death, but it could have just been.
No, I just. But what I hate at all is that something like that. I'll answer Purdue here in a sec, but I hate when something comes out that's viewed as negative like that. It's like people all of a sudden get on the defense. Oh, they didn't fight back. That makes and obviously now you can't even talk about the information because you got two sides, and that's the part that sucks, is that the fact that they didn't fight back has nothing to do with.
Good night, Jennifer. Thank you for
Positive or
everything you
negative,
did tonight.
But people say, oh, they didn't fight back, that's a sign of whatever. No, it's not. We don't know what all was going on. So
there's so much we don't know. And like I said, when you have a vacuum of information, it's so easy to place what we think into that instead of what we know.
Right.
Well,
and we could make it fit whatever we want to make it fit.
Well, like I said, we have to remember that some of these people that are filling out this paperwork were they careful with their wordage? And if they weren't, then you can take everything in those reports with a grain of salt.
Yeah, you would hope with the FBI and the behavioral unit and everything, and how important profiling is, that they would be pretty clear about staging versus posing versus signatures. But I agree with you. The verbiage could. I mean,
but we're also, but hold on a second though too. We're also very human, and the idea that this report is ever going to get out to the public,
right?
I mean,
when they're writing it, they're not thinking that. Yeah, you're right.
Yeah, I've often thought that what if this wasn't intended to be a murder? What if the intent was something else and something went wrong?
Well, that's what I'm saying is, well, yeah, I mean, F it. I've said every other stupid thing. But, when I talked with Kelsey at CrimeCon this year, she was a little sassier than normal.
And you've got a little sassier, so I mean,
she was getting ready to graduate. That's why, Captain.
Well, I think she's just tired of my bullshit. I mean, but when I saw that, I thought, well, if she can do that, then her sister could have done that very easily. And we don't know. Again, like, I don't know what the motive is, but I just don't put it past somebody that hey, girls, what are you doing here? Right? And a conversation happens and an accident happens. Girls go down the hill. Guys go down the hill. One of them starts to go down the hill and they trip and fall. And now that changes the whole scenario, right? Was there a gun involved? Was there a knife involved? I mean, all these questions that we don't know.
Right.
So I think it's tough, but
yeah, I mean, the way to handle two girls one time is to one of them be injured almost immediately.
And this I agree with. Joe said this really well, because I thought about this early on. If somebody was going to murder them and they're on the bridge with them, why wouldn't they just push them off the bridge?
We don't know that one of them wasn't pushed off.
Obviously, if it was somebody that really wanted to use a knife or was that kind of a psychopath, maybe pushing them off the bridge didn't do it for him. But I mean, he needed to do the other. But I did wonder that if you were going to just want to do away with them, just push them off the bridge.
Yeah,
then it could look like they just fell.
Yeah, that's why the hit thing. I know people believe possibly was a hit, but if it's a hit, do you really drag them over there to Logan's property and stage the scene? And I mean, that's not really what a hit's about. It's about
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, unless it's a revenge thing, a revenge hit.
So you're paying a little extra to make it. Yeah, I need you to.
I agree. Yeah, I mean, there's, like I said, we can keep going and just, keep talking about this stuff because there's just so many different angles and so many ways to look at it. I was curious, obviously, to see what the captain felt about the whole new stuff from Murder Sheet, which he was eloquent in his remarks tonight.
Oh yeah. I'm sure I'm going to get reprimanded about that later.
You think you're going to get reprimanded by who?
Oh no, I'm a big boy. You don't have to protect me.
I'm like, who's going to reprimand you?
No, I just know that we have this narrative that's happening in the true crime space on who can talk about a case and who can't.
Yeah.
And I'm a very very much a proponent for freedom of speech, period. But again, we have to remember in these cases that a lot of times a family member is involved. And I'm not saying that that's the case in Delphi, but I'm saying that in so many cases, there's somebody involved with that's connected to the family or in the family themselves. And so it's our job to question things. And I think, and I also think, and I don't want to speak for the family because I don't know this, but I think they know that there's good and bad that has come from this case being so public. And that I think they're also smart enough to understand that you have to take the good, you have to take the bad with the good.
They want the case still out there. They want people still talking about it.
Yes.
They don't want the case to go cold. And I think they know that being, asking for that and asking for us to keep covering it, to still keep talking about it, that they are going to have to live with the negativity and the crazies and the, as you put them, the ignorant people.
No question.
Well,
can I answer Purdue Orian's question? She's asked me a couple of times about the motive. I'll just give you kind of there it is. In general terms, there was there's a POI whose fiance had a miscarriage, and there was rumors it was blamed on some bad drugs that were brought in or sold by a relative of one of the girls, and that the person who had the miscarriage wasn't doing the drugs, handled it, anyway, don't know that was that's what caused it, but that was what was blamed, and was trying to get in touch with Derek and wouldn't return calls, and so confronted Libby, and that's the theory. Perry thought it was pretty good, so I was happy with that.
Michelle said pushing them off the bridge wouldn't have satisfied his hunger for his type of craving. It's like a drug addict.
I agree. Yeah. I agree with that, and that may be, but that may have not been the. So let's say he did. Let's say he just lost his temper. He just blew a fuse, and one of them said something, or Libby said something back to him, and he just threw him off. It'd be easy to push somebody off down the hill. Got her hurt, and then, but that's not the way she died.
Right.
That may have caused injuries, but he still got to the satisfaction of his. I don't even like thinking about it.
I don't know. What did she say? Oh, if this is CSAM related and captured on film, I hope to God it never gets leaked. Yeah.
If it's been out there for a while, I would have to think they've.
Yeah.
Would they have seen it? Somebody's seen it.
Somebody has. I mean, if you think that if they put that on film, if they recorded that and it was put out on the dark web or wherever they share that stuff or put it, you would think somebody by this time would have said something.
Yeah, because you can't sell it unless you can see it. So, what, it has opened my eyes. I guess I was naive to a lot of that stuff exists though, for real. Some of that, God, filming, I know snuff films in the past, and a lot of the staging, a lot of it was not real, but this shit's like, put your $100 in and we'll break a finger or something. It's nuts.
Yeah.
Law enforcement.
Sure. Melissa wants to know if the land on Google Earth between Deer Creek and and the bridge was Ron Logan's
Was
land.
on Google?
Ron Logan's land is on the north side of the bridge.
Right. What do they ask? Let's see. Was land on Google Earth between Deer Creek and Bridge?
On the other side of Deer Creek.
Where the private drive is?
Not by the private drive. That's the south side.
That's what I'm saying. She's asking about the north side.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was his. She asking where does his land? Does his land?
She wanted to know if it was Ron Logan's land.
Bridge. Is that what she's asking?
Yeah.
Okay.
Here you go. Skip, are you going to the Indy 500 while you're in Indy?
No, I actually should stay. That's always kind of been a bucket list thing for me, but I can't. So, but I would like to.
Yeah. What's up with this? Has anybody got an idea? Where did Libby's jacket go?
I thought, weren't they giving sweatshirts? If she had a jacket, why would she need a sweatshirt?
I thought she had a sweatshirt wrapped around her waist.
Yeah, but
The jacket.
But law enforcement's not telling us that wasn't.
And they're not telling anything about that. All we know is that the one jacket was Kelsey's, and she gave it to Abby because she kept it in her car. And that's what Abby has on in the picture on the bridge.
Yeah, but it's also this. If we're going back to the Ron Logan search warrant, it's really speculative if the killer took any items.
Exactly. And people are already talking about underwear and socks, and it was redacted. They did not tell what pieces of clothing were missing.
Well, but also, like, just because the piece of clothing would be missing, that doesn't mean that the perpetrator
took them.
Right.
I mean, you're talking about, a squirrel could run off with a sock. I mean,
Yeah.
Rivers.
The water, something could have, parts of the water, like when the water meets the land, that sometimes there's underneath the land, there's a little bit of water. Is it possible that one of the socks went under there, or the underwear went there? I don't know. I don't know if there's any evidence that the perpetrator took anything.
Yeah, because Michelle said they recovered the rest of the clothes, but they didn't specify. They just said they had the rest of the clothing.
Yeah, and I think the other, one of the speculations have been that, like, maybe that this perpetrator cut the girl's hair and took that as some kind of souvenir or something. But that's
she supposedly wore a tie-dye T-shirt that was fringed at the bottom.
Yeah,
is what she had on, and then a sweatshirt.
Right. Yeah, I didn't remember a jacket. That was the sock missing? Is that where the rumor of the?
Well, they're talking about that was said in the affidavit for the.
Right, but was that the how the foot? Have you heard any of that? I know it's just rumor, but is that because there was a sock missing that he must have a foot fetish?
I don't know.
I don't know. I'm asking the wrong person. I know, but I was just kind of curious.
Oh. Tamara says it's on the radio transmission during the search.
That what? They found something?
That they found clothing in the creek.
Right. Yeah, but we were told that by law enforcement, and the family kind of alluded to that too. And they talked about the family. The family actually went and looked for other pieces that they thought were missing in the water later, further downstream.
And we don't know if the panties that were found in the water, if that's what they were with the cigarettes, if they had anything to do with the crime. I mean, we don't know that.
Yeah, the shell casings that were found for the .40 caliber pistol. They don't, just because they found some doesn't mean those came from a gun. From what I was told, the once the forensic ballistics came back, that they determined those shell casings were older than fired that day.
So
The
somebody,
gun could have still been used in the crime, just not fired.
so Captain Skip, how do you think Bridge Guy fled the scene? And any thoughts on him being the hitchhiker that was seen?
Man, that's a question right up my alley, isn't it? Anyway, you should just cue your video the last time I was on.
I was just gonna say that's Skip's theory.
Yeah, I think that there's a good possibility that the hitchhiker that was seen early on was actually DG going back to the car at the CPS building, and they just didn't put. One of the things, another misnomer was that the crime scene was, or the timeline was very tight. Everybody thought, oh, he got in and out of there really quick. Actually, it wasn't. Actually, it was just kind of the opposite. And I think that was what law enforcement saw. An individual being seen around 1:30 or 1:40 or whatever time it was, 1:50, entering the trails, and then a hitchhiker seen about after 4 o'clock. They didn't think that could have been, because they're working on a theory that it was a tight timeline. So that's, again, that's, I think it's very possible and likely, because it explains why the second sketch, I was told who saw the hitchhiker. And I think he's an honest guy, and so, but a duffel bag would explain why there was no hat. Because that's always been one of the biggest points people make is, why does the first sketch have a hat and
Right.
News hat or whatever it is, newsboy hat, and then the second sketch has got the curly hair with no hat.
Yeah, or the hat was found in the water.
True. Yes, D. Fig did do a show with Skip.
Yes.
About the hitchhiker.
Yep. We did. I told Fig about the theory, and he and I discussed it a bunch, and we decided to do a show, or he decided to have me on the show.
Yeah, Alicia wants to know, why is the only unsolved bomb threat to the Indiana Packers plant the one after the murders, but is never talked about by law enforcement trying to catch who did it? Yeah, that always bothered me too. Yeah, but I think they used that. They called in a bomb threat. I think they used that as an excuse to go into the plant for evidence.
To get the boots.
They needed those boots to check out those footprints that they found at the crime scene.
That's the thing. Footprints, definitive footprints are very good evidence. So maybe it's not totally void of physical evidence, but that you certainly can determine, size of foot, type of shoe, lots of things. And in a town of 2,800 people, if you think the guy's local, it narrows it down a pretty good bit.
Yeah.
I mean, if the guy's wearing boots, if they determine it's boots from Indiana Packers, or if it's a pair of New Balance that was bought at Athlete's Foot,
And Anna says the clothing in the water might indicate direction the killer went when he left. Crime scene is said to be 25 meters up from the north. Not necessarily, though, because that's the way the creek flows. So that right. The creek could have just taken the clothes downstream.
Toward the bridge?
Towards the bridge, yes.
Yeah.
Somebody wants to know, what key evidence do you think maybe law enforcement has that we don't know about?
Probably DNA sample. I actually believe. See, the second sketch that was released in 2019 was actually drawn before the first sketch that was released. So I believe before they released the first sketch that they had to identify the person in the second sketch. I think they did identify that person back in 2017. Then they released the first sketch, and then once they realized that they were wrong, and I think they probably did that when GBI got involved, that when they came out in 2019 and said this is the sketch of the killer, that they already identified that person.
it would make sense that
Yeah.
they would certainly try to identify.
Good night,
they would,
Michelle.
They would never want anybody out there unidentified. I mean, the prosecutor would be he would be, very clear that he would need that cleared up. I mean, you can't have somebody unidentified out there running around that was seen on the trails that day. So that was same thing they did when they put out the bolo for the hitchhiker. They were trying to identify anybody in the vicinity at the time of the crime, and so they would absolutely want to know and try to identify the person that they went to the trouble of spending 5 hours to make a sketch on.
Yeah. So, guys, it's been almost 3 hours. Is there anything else that you want to?
We're just getting started.
We're just getting started.
This is halftime.
Hey, thank goodness for your audience. The questions were great. Every one of them was great.
We had really good questions. We still have 202 people watching us. So, I mean, it's not like we've bored them to death tonight.
It was good to see. It was good to see a lot of people.
So, I think they like you guys. I mean, I've said that before. You guys have a lot of good information, and I like the way you disseminate it to us. It's,
Yeah, you should be a fly on the wall when me and Skip are going at it.
Oh, I would like to listen to that sometime.
It's a no holds barred.
That might be worth paying.
You think 3 hours? You think 3 hours seems long? Try
because I think you can get really hyped up, Captain.
He can, but Captain's great to talk to, because he doesn't he doesn't lose his temper. He's even keeled, but but you can tell when he disagrees with you.
Well, and I don't have to be right,
I really like that about you.
I really think, the more and more that I meet law enforcement agents that have been retired for a long time. I mean, Paul Holes came out at the Delphi panel and was saying that, he have me be involved in Delphi. It's like, oh, what are you going to do that they haven't already done? But there's a lot of guys, like I said, these retired law enforcement agents that for whatever reason, they think they're the smartest guy in the room. And I think that's a danger.
There's a lot of A personalities out there, Captain.
Yeah.
Those type A's.
But, I used to think that way a lot, And then one day I was like, well, what does it matter? I've been called the worst names in the world since we started doing the podcast. And people will say, oh, well, Nick's the smart one. And we like Nick, and Nick knows, But I think over the years I've learned that it doesn't matter who thinks you're the smartest in the room.
Melissa thinks you were a cop before.
Don't tell anybody. No. If I was a cop, I was like a vice cop, so I was always drunk and high.
I'll take care of you, Chihuahua.
No, but I really wish people would start off with the idea that we don't know everything. And Skip, since I've met him, and Skip agrees with me, there could be 3 or 4 or maybe 5 giant pieces of evidence that law enforcement has that would change everybody's opinion. And we're just not privy to that information.
True.
Yes.
I just like the fact when we can have a group chat where you can come on and discuss the case respectively, and everybody gets their opinion out there in a positive way, because
it does seem
we
like
don't always have to agree.
Yeah, it does seem like there is the potential for a big piece of evidence that we don't know about to spin the case into a.
Do you think the murder sheet has more, Captain?
Well, I know they have more that they're
Do you
going.
think they're going to release more?
I think they're going to weigh if it gives us more information about the case or not.
And Lynn asked the probably the best question of the night. Do you think there's going to be an arrest soon?
You have to. I'm going to say this, and maybe Skip will hate this. The further we get away from 2019, the more likely the theory that we presented on our last conversation about the Delphi case with Skip, the more that theory becomes null and void, I think. But Carter seems very confident, almost as if he's calling his shot. And what I also want to say real quick is when we put out those 3-part episodes with Skip, there was like this energy that we're moving forward with the case and that we might actually get somewhere. And I remember that feeling when Becky came out a couple weeks ago and said law enforcement said there was DNA, and here's proof that they said this. And then Murder Sheet came out with even this Ron Logan stuff, which again, stop looking at it pointing to Logan, looking at it as information to the case. When these things happen, I feel like there's an energy, and I think that energy, maybe that sounds a little hippity dippity, but I do think that our energy as a collective, if we keep saying that today is the day, we are going to be right, like Carter says. But I think we have to think positive instead of this negative talk of law enforcement doesn't know anything. No, they're going to figure this out. They're going to get this done. And I know Libby's mom came out a couple days ago and, said she wasn't confident in law enforcement anymore. And she's one of these people that looked into this Ron Logan information, and she's somehow thrown off by it. I'm just hopeful that his cockiness and his arrogance means something.
Thank you, Mel. That was so kind of you. No, I totally agree with you on that. And Skip will probably get mad at me for that, but I do agree that I think that.
Bad about Skip again?
What?
Are y'all talking bad about Skip again?
Yeah, we're talking bad about you. Okay. No, I do. I feel that we have to remain positive, and we have to keep saying that today's the day. Without hope, we don't have anything. And we just have to have hope. And I'm not willing to let go of that. This case means too much to me, and that's where I'm at. Bless you.
I wish I would. I mean, I wish I was. I just go on what we have, what we know today. I'm not encouraged, but there could be something new, happen. And if the digital angle is where they think it's at, they think that's where they can gain some more evidence, then hopefully because physical evidence in terms of crime scene, all that, they have what they have, right? They're not going to find the knife in a garbage can somewhere serendipitously. So I want to be confident, but there's got to be more than they have, or at least what
we've talked about behind closed doors is if Carter is making these statements. Carter's been reserved. For him to come out and say, I think we'll know who did it, or we'll make some kind of arrest before my time period's up. Every month we're getting closer to that time period being up. I don't think he comes off as a guy that would just say that willy-nilly. Like, hopeful that we're going to get that information next week. It's almost like, well, we got some stuff. And I also believe what he says. Again, I think a lot of this goes down to, do you believe that law enforcement is talking about real stuff, or if they're just talking about fictitious crap? But he said in the interview, we're learning more about you every day. And I believe
Exactly.
he's actually.
And he told him to sleep well.
Yeah.
And I think that it's hard to look at this case being 5 years old. The investigation, as it currently stands, is not really 5 years old. At least the investigative strategy part of it's not. It's 3 years old. So, that part of it still, but it still goes back is the things that were collected, the physical evidence early on. And a lot of cases with DNA, the victim's DNA, they identify somebody kind of early on. The victim's DNA is found on the perp, and that's harder to explain away. They lost their opportunity with that early on because they looked in the wrong direction. So the physical evidence is what it is. Hopefully this digital component will, bear some fruit.
Well, I think Doug Carter told us in February. He actually told us in 2019 that they were going back to the beginning. They had been led down the wrong path for 2 years, and now they were heading in a different direction. And basically, they were going back to the beginning. So, in actuality, it's only been 3 years, three and a half, going on 3.5 years. And a lot of people don't look at it that way. They keep looking at it as the whole 5 years. And for whatever reason that led law enforcement off the path, whether it was mistakes or whether they just didn't listen or missed something or somebody lied to them, whatever, I don't think that matters at this point.
Right. That's
point
like
is,
why they cancel the dogs. I mean,
yeah.
It was a mistake, but there's, nothing you can do about it.
Well, I think the big problem is a lot of people that think that this Bridge guy somehow duped the police and that he's like some evil genius. And I think one of the issues in this case was there were so many law enforcement officers involved. If me, Skip, and Kristen went and interviewed 10 people all together, if those people's stories didn't line up with each other, we're going to be able to figure that out really quickly if we're all in the same room doing the same interview. But if Kristen interviewed 3 of those people and I interviewed 3 of those people and then Skip interviewed 4 of those people, we can't cross-reference as well.
Yeah, you have to have somebody really coordinated extremely well.
Yeah, so I think some of this stuff took them 2 years to figure out that some of the eyewitness accounts didn't line up and didn't make a lot of sense. And then when they were presented with that evidence, then they had to go back and kind of cross their T's and dot their I's.
Well, there's just so many unusual dynamics in this case. I mean, you've got the release of it, basically law enforcement come out and say a brand new, a change in investigative strategy, and a new sketch goes along with it. But that sketch was the first one that was done. It was actually done 4 days after, there's just a lot of unusual things about the murders, about the investigative aspect of the case, everything. That's a lot of it, though, is what makes, it so intriguing to a lot of people. And that's why, and that's good because that brings a lot of people in and it keeps the case alive.
This case has so many layers to it. It's incredible.
Yeah. Well, you usually don't see law enforcement making press conference where they're changing directions of the investigation. And One former guy told me about, we were talking about the second sketch, and he said, one thing I can promise you, he said, about the second sketch, he said, I would focus on that because they're not going to release the wrong sketch again. They're not going to compound the problem the second time by releasing something that's wrong again. They're going to be pretty damn sure that's right. So they're on the right. I think they're on the right guy or person or profile. They've just got to make a case.
Yep. They're building the case.
Yep.
I think one of the reasons why this case is interesting too is you have the two spokespersons have pretty much been the grandmother and a sister, and after hearing from Libby's mother this week, I wish she would get more involved, and I wish she would be a little more vocal, because I think her. If people think that a little bit more information from law enforcement could break this case wide open, it's going to be the family being critical of law enforcement.
I agree.
And how they're handling this, and I think that pressure could come from Libby's mother. And I think sometimes people are too respectful. Kelsey's maybe sometimes too respectful of law enforcement, and that's why I think there was a surge of energy when Becky was like, "Look, they said there was DNA, and here's the article in which it is." I mean, I don't think that was rude or disrespectful to law enforcement, but she was making a definitive statement, and I think those things are important.
No, I agree with that, and I wish that Anna has been quiet a lot, and I mean, she went to CrimeCon 2 years, I think. But yeah, she's definitely been the quietest, and if of the parents other than Derek, Carrie's been vocal, but you don't get to hear about much what Carrie says. I think that Anna was really feeling that people covering the cases was hurtful. My source says that she thought the more we talked about it and covered it, the more we were going to hinder law enforcement. And she was angry about that.
Yeah.
So she just decided not to talk.
Right. My question would have been for her, do you think law enforcement's sitting around and listen to every episode?
Right.
Captain and Skip and Kristen talking? Nah.
They
turned this episode off when we started talking about penises.
When we started talking about what?
Penises.
Oh, geez.
Tiny wieners.
I do have one question for y'all. The last question is, there was a rumor that y'all talked about what Murder Sheet might release or that. Let's just say hypothetically, they could release something that had to do with cause of death, but it wasn't anything that changed anything. Is that worth releasing? I mean, I know most cases cause of death is kind of pretty much standard operating procedure. That's you usually know that in cases. And I feel like people almost feel like entitled. They feel like entitled to know that. But if we already know and the assumptions are correct about the way they died, is putting out corroborating information helpful, or does it matter?
I think when you start talking about the crime scene, it can be detrimental, because that's when you start getting people who want to confess falsely. And they don't need that in this case, for Lord's sakes. They don't need people coming in and saying they did it because they know stuff about the crime scene. So I think they have to be careful. I think that's one reason why they don't want to talk about the crime scene.
I don't think they're going to get any false positions. They got 1,200 men in the town, and about 950 of them are POIs. So probably not going to have a whole lot of false confessions. But I agree that I don't know. I just think if it's the same, if they were killed with a sharp-edged object, or whatever the terminology they use, a knife, and somebody releases something corroborating that, verifying that. Does that really do, and does that move the needle?
Well, I think that that you're probably right on all of that, but I think we have to wait and see what it's going to matter, or how it's going to, if it's going to matter at all.
Well, I feel bad for them because I know, as far as like, you know, her background as being a journalist, I think she's going to uncover more and more stuff. And I think the longer this case goes on, the more and more people involved behind the scenes are going to get this information out. And I think that's probably why they got that information pretty quickly, is because Murder Sheet put out information before. So now they're a good outlet to put that out.
Yeah.
So I think they're going to receive more. And I told them this, you know, when I talked to them on the phone, I believe that, you know, they're going to have to make some hard decisions about the information, you know. But I do think their hearts are in the right place. I think most people that cover this, their hearts are in the right place.
I think you're right. I do think you're right on that. And like I said, when I was critical or being critical of the Murder Sheet over this, it wasn't personal at all. I think that they are definitely professional people that know what they're doing, and I love their coverage of the Burger Chef murders. So I know that they have investigatory capabilities, but they're very critical of law enforcement in that case, and very vocal about it. So
yeah, no, and I think and like a lot of people that go, oh, you know, they attacked you or they came at me, like I didn't view it that way. I viewed it as that they were questioning, well, why would we do this with a platform like ours? Why would we do this? And then a lot of people are going, well, isn't it funny because they're just doing what they question you of doing? And I think the shoe is just on the other foot now, you know.
Yeah, I did like I was what is the name? Skip makes the channel. I already have made.
they're begging in the chat for you to make a channel.
Yeah. Well, if he'll do the deal, I'll make a channel just so I can get him to have the music. That's the impetus enough just to create a channel. No, I agree with the captain. I didn't have a problem. You know, they asked me to go on the show. I knew he was already going to be on the show, and so they said, "Well, will you?" So I declined, but I told them I would answer any questions they have. So they sent me a questionnaire thing, and I answered them all. I think probably the only thing that I had issue with was maybe they discredited me a little bit in terms of he's just some random guy from Reddit. And that may be true. You know, that may be a true statement. But it was meant in a way not to prop up, meant in a way to discredit. So that was the only thing. I don't have a problem with either one of them personally. And like I said before, I give them the benefit of the doubt on things because I don't know their intent. I think if their heart's in the right place, then I'm good with all of it.
Well, but that's like what we were talking about before with, like, you know, retired law enforcement. You know, they might have great experience, but they lost perspective. And so is that the type of person you want to bring into the case, or do you just want to put, I mean, look, I think Delphi, John Benet Ramsey, Mara Murray, whatever, I think you just bring a person of a little bit of above average intelligence into the conversation, and they're going to be able to make you look in different directions. You know what I mean? Like maybe Paul Holes would help the Delphi case, but maybe somebody that knew nothing about nothing would help the case.
Right.
Yeah, true. Well, guys, it's been 3 hours, so I think we're going to say goodnight.
Yeah, I'm so
Anything
tired.
else you would like
Enjoyed
to
it,
say?
Kristen. Enjoyed it, Captain.
I'm so tired of looking at Skip.
I know. I'm like, really?
I was okay. Next time, if there is a next time, I'll
We
be
don't
on.
want to see your face.
Y'all seen the picture of me?
And we don't know if that's a real picture.
Yeah, you've seen real pictures of me.
Yeah. I don't know if those pictures are appropriate to show.
Well,
Huh.
you know.
There goes that bromance again. Hey, Captain,
Yeah.
I got to tell you something. You have really, really, really good taste. Your clock behind you, I have that same clock.
Oh yeah.
So
But
you have good taste.
You notice how the time is wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. No battery in it.
It's tough because of where it's located to have to
Yeah.
change the batteries, but I just noticed it and I was like, wow, he's got really good taste.
It's Hobby Lobby.
There you go.
Yeah. Well, Kristen, thank you so much for having us.
You're so welcome. It was wonderful. This is my longest live ever. I've never spent 3 hours on a live before. So
she's exhausted. She needs to go to sleep now.
Yeah, now you can go to sleep.
Yeah.
But no, it was really great. I knew it would be having both of you on because you both have such great insight. And I love your podcast. Your podcast is amazing. If you guys haven't listened to True Crime Garage, you need to absolutely check them out wherever your favorite podcasts are found.
Yeah,
and
they're
Skip,
the
you
best.
need to make that channel.
Well, even when they have just some random Reddit guy.
Yeah, when we have those random Reddit guys on there, we stir up a lot of trouble.
Sometimes you get into trouble. You do.
Who, me?
Both of them. Yeah.
You know, it's still worth listening to.
Trouble.
Yeah, well, yeah, make sure that when you because I know it's live, but it's still going to be available for people afterwards, right?
Yes, it absolutely will be. And in the details of my video will be your address for your podcast. And but everybody can listen to it afterwards. And also the live chat will be available, but it usually takes about 24 hours for that to appear.
Right. Cool.
YouTube's kind of slow getting that out for whatever reason.
Well, yeah. Thank you for having us, and thank you for.
Fig says you guys did average, and I did a great job.
Yeah, of course. That's what Fig would. He's probably.
He's unbelievable. That guy's he is unbelievable.
He's probably sniffing gasoline again.
He loves himself so much.
Yeah. Well, we give Fig one thumb down, one thumb up for Fig.
Yeah, Susan says, I'm not spamming by begging Skip to make a channel. I'm serious. I've wanted him to make one for a while. No, it was the capital letters, Susan. The bot doesn't like you to use capital letters.
Thanks, Susan. I appreciate it.
So, and Tech Death is asking for his autographed photograph, Skip.
Oh, yeah.
He wants a picture with a photo, with autograph.
Stacks of them.
But no, it was really great having you guys on. We'll have to do it again. Maybe when something breaks in the case.
Yeah, that'd be great. Good seeing both you guys.
Yeah.
And stay
Always
positive.
a pleasure.
Stay positive. Something big's going to happen. Stay positive.
I am holding it dear in my heart that is absolutely what's going to happen. So, but it was great seeing you guys.
All right. Yep. Cheers. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. So there you go, guys. Wasn't it wonderful having them? I loved having them on. They're always so so good to listen to. And I've never had the captain on before, and I just think he's just top notch, even though I don't agree with everything that he says, but he's very respectful. So anyway, guys, thank you so very much. Yeah, what I was trying to say is that YouTube doesn't like capital letters. They see it as argumentative or yelling. And so YouTube doesn't like that. So the bot steps in when they see the capital letters. So it wasn't personal, just a learning moment. Fig, I love that you were here. Thank you so much. I hope everybody learned something tonight. Thank you for sticking around with me for 3 hours. And I hope everybody has a great weekend and that you stay safe and have a wonderful Memorial Day with your family and friends. And I will see you guys next week. Thank you so very much. Good night, everybody.
Hey, 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 hey.